At the age of 12, Naruto Uzumaki gained the extraordinary ability to traverse between his home world, the ninja world, and the mysterious world known as the Soul Society. Naruto's Diary. Konoha Year 63, March 15th. I seem to have died, crossed out. I seem to have died and come back to life. Konoha Year 63, March 16th. The weight of this new existence crushes him. A return to life offers no solace, and he questions whether it might have been better to remain dead. Konoha Year 63, April 1st. Desperation sets in as Naruto searches the Soul Society for his parents, only to discover that this world is not connected to his own. His parents are nowhere to be found. Konoha Year 63, July. The dream of becoming Hokage fades, as Naruto finds himself detached from the village that once held his heart. The desire to become a Shinigami grows stronger within him, spurred by the hope of discovering the true Soul Society of his world and reuniting with his parents. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Omni-sensei here with What If Naruto Was a Genius of Soul Society? Naruto Meets Bleach, Part 1. If you enjoy this type of content, please gently Chidori the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Remember to check out the original story linked in the description. Without further ado, let's get into the legend of the greatest Shinigami. Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts. Registration office. Turn left ahead. A wooden sign stood in the middle of the road. Uzumaki Naruto stared at the words and took a deep breath. Ahead was not some perilous place. It was merely a school for training Shinigami. Failing the assessment would not bring punishment, and there was always the opportunity to reapply next year. However, Naruto did not have any fond memories of schools. The last time he had contact with a school was 3 years ago. At that time, he was still in another world. Attending a ninja academy in a village called Konoha, he was the despised dead last. No one wanted to be his friend, and not a single teacher liked him. Of course, this wasn't limited to the school. His situation was the same throughout the entire village of Konoha. Even shops and convenience stores did not welcome him or do business with him, except for Ichiraka Ramen, the only shop willing to serve him. So Naruto didn't like schools, but he had an unavoidable reason to enroll this time. This place, different from Konoha, was another world, a place called Soul Society, where souls reside after death. Although he had not experienced the soul burial that other souls mentioned, Naruto had no difficulty understanding the fact. Coming here meant I was already dead. Death strikes fear into the living. Yet Naruto did not find it hard to accept. He quickly grew fond of this place, where there was no inexplicable scolding or malicious targeting of him alone. Shops welcomed his business, and many people were willing to befriend him. Most importantly, in Soul Society, souls return after death, which meant he was finally in the same world as his parents. The only bad news was that the place of birth for souls in Soul Society is not fixed. There are 360 districts in Hokage, and the probability of being born in the same district is only 1 in 360. Naruto had searched his district for 3 years without finding his parents. Therefore, he had to become a Shinigami. He had to become an extraordinary person like a captain, with a squad of people helping him search, or have his name spread throughout Soul Society. In that way, he would surely find his parents. Uzumaki Naruto walked through the school gates with the crowd and filled out the registration form. Under the guidance of an upperclassman in a blue and white school uniform, he entered a gymnasium. Once the number of people reached 200, the gym doors closed. Ryatsu is the essence of a Shinigami. A formally dressed Shinigami, wearing a black uniform with a sword at his waist, began to introduce to this batch of examinees. Only souls capable of possessing Ryatsu are eligible to study at Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts. Come forward in the order I call. The rest wait. The test was simple. Each person only needed to place their hand on a crystal ball, and based on the light it emitted, the Shinigami would announce a different rank. Most would receive the cold, unqualified. Those who passed were often at the unimpressive 17th or 18th rank, which did not please the Shinigami. Only a few received the 11th or 12th rank, and the Shinigami's expression would soften slightly. Clearly, the smaller the rank number, the better. Naruto, having arrived late, was at the end of the line, watching one unqualified after another, with the occasional qualified in between. He couldn't help but clench his fists, making his fingertips red and his knuckles stand out. He recognized many people ahead. Some were acquaintances he had interacted with mixed outcomes. These individuals either failed the assessment or barely passed with ranks like 18th or 19th. Others were well-known figures. One woman, who could barely use spiritual power to alter basic spiritual particles and turn soil into sand, only received a 12th rank. It was all about talent. But Naruto found it hard to believe he had any talent. If I had that thing back in the Ninja Academy, I wouldn't have been disliked. I would definitely be like Uchiha Sasuke, who, even with a perpetually sour expression, was loved by teachers and classmates alike. 20th rank. I need at least 20th rank to be able to enroll smoothly. Soon, the Shinigami called his name, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto walked over with heavy steps. Like everyone before him, he placed his hand on the crystal ball. The Shinigami glanced over indifferently, while the upperclassmen prepared to record an 18th, 19th, or unqualified. But at that moment, something unprecedented happened. The crystal ball burst into an intense, dazzling light, blinding and scorching. The recording upperclassman's eyes widened. His brush dropped, staining the floor without him noticing. The previously indifferent Shinigami jumped up, energized, and exclaimed, "Fifth rank." The gymnasium erupted. This group of souls, who had not yet become Shinigamis or even students, didn't understand what 5th rank meant. But the fact that over 100 people before them hadn't scored above 10th rank proved how extraordinary this ranking was. The Shinigami's intense reaction further highlighted its significance. That inconspicuous blonde boy, was he really this exceptional? Assessment suspended. The Shinigami quickly calmed down and instructed a nearby student, "I'll take this Uzumaki Naruto outside. Maintain order." The student straightened up and responded, "Yes." The Shinigami grabbed Naruto's wrist and flashed outside the gymnasium. 5th rank. Does that mean I'm talented? The rushing wind and strong centrifugal force pulled Naruto back to clarity, and he asked. The Shinigami chuckled. "Talented? That's an understatement. Your abilities are unlike those unpolished gems yet to shine. We're here." They stopped in front of a room, and the Shinigami knocked respectfully. A voice inside said, "Come in." The Shinigami opened the door, unable to contain his excitement as he stepped in. Haku. A genius emerged in the new student entrance exam. 5th rank of spiritual power. Inside, a cheerful and kind-faced middle-aged man stood up. 5th rank, Uzumaki Naruto. The Shinigami gently pulled Naruto inside and repeated the result. 5th rank of spiritual power. I saw it myself. Then he turned to Naruto with a grin. This is the Dean of the Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts. Haku Iki, are you confused about your talent? Naruto nodded. The Shinigami continued, 5th rank of spiritual power means that with simple training at the Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts, you can easily reach the Dean's rank. Naruto was stunned. The Dean's rank? The Dean must be an incredible figure. He thought of the only comparison he had. Who was the principal of the Konoha Ninja Academy? Wasn't it the 3rd Hokage? Could he become someone as remarkable as the 3rd Hokage? The Shinigami chuckled. You need at least 20th rank of spiritual power to barely become a Shinigami. 10th rank, reaching 10th rank of spiritual power can make you a low-ranked lieutenant like me. Above 8th rank, you can become a high-ranking lieutenant like Dean Haku. Before becoming the Dean, he was a 6th rank spiritual power, serving as the 3rd seat of the 9th division. and the 5th rank of spiritual power already meets the requirements for a vice captain. At this point, the Shinigami paused, his deep gaze on Naruto filled with satisfaction. But this still doesn't fully explain your talent. In nearly 100 years, not only has no student enrolled with 5th rank of spiritual power, but even graduates with over 8th rank of spiritual power have been very few. Even the current captains of the 3rd Division, Odoribishi Rojuro, and the 9th Division, Muguruma Kensei, were only at 6th rank when they graduated. Naruto, engrossed, condensed this long speech into a simple question. So, I'm a genius? Hakuichi laughed heartily. You're not just a genius. You're a once-in-a-century genius, and you're quite young too. No wonder they brought you to see me. Naruto didn't respond, just looked at the two people celebrating him. Deep in his ear, a crack sound echoed. Something within him broke. Seemed to be biased. I can't find a dean, only the principal, which is the captain commander Shino Academy on Bleach. Nor is there a person named Haku Ikki in Bleach. Haku Ikki Naruto found it a bit challenging to adjust to his new identity as a genius. He also felt somewhat uncomfortable being observed with so many friendly and enthusiastic looks. It was a treatment entirely different from what he had experienced in Konoha, a stark contrast. The significant psychological gap made him inevitably anxious and uncertain. He worried about whether he truly had talent. He worried that once the truth was exposed, he would continue to be ridiculed by his classmates and looked down upon by his teachers. However, after enrolling, Naruto first learned a term, a fool's worry. He was indeed a genius. The main 4 courses at Shino Academy are swordsmanship, zanjutsu, hand-to-hand combat, hakuda, shuinpa, ho-ho, and kido. Swordsmanship refers to kenjutsu, as Shinigami are warriors who fight with zanpakuto, and the sword is their other half. Hand-to-hand combat is similar to the taijutsu Naruto was familiar with. Shuinpa is a technique for rapid movement. In these 3 areas, Naruto showed exceptional talent, especially in Shuinpa. While other students struggled to grasp the basics, Naruto had already mastered it. This movement technique seemed ingrained in his body, activated upon contact. His talent in swordsmanship and hand-to-hand combat wasn't as evident compared to some of his peers. But Naruto worked hard enough. Moreover, he had an extraordinary healing speed since childhood, which he retained in the Soul Society. While others could only train for 7 or 8 hours a day, Naruto could train for 14 or 16 hours. He wanted to quickly fulfill the potential that the dean had mentioned. He wanted to become a captain soon. He wanted to find his parents quickly, to have a family soon. Among the 4 courses, Naruto's performance in Kido was the weakest, even quite poor. Kido is a form of spellcasting that converts spiritual power into various techniques, similar to the ninjutsu in Konoha. When his classmates had already mastered the first-ranked Heido and Bakudo and started learning higher-ranked Kido spells, Naruto's Heido No. 1, Sho, thrust, was still laughably weak, less powerful than the air from a fart. This troubled Naruto. It wasn't that he lacked talent, nor was his learning progress slower than others. It was just that he couldn't perform it. It was the same when he was alive, though he didn't understand it then. After death, it was still the same. However, after studying courses on understanding spiritual power, Naruto could clearly feel that the reason he couldn't perform Kido was due to a strange power interfering within him. He didn't know how to explain this to his teachers and was even more afraid of his fool's worries coming true. However, not all schools are ninja academy, nor are all teachers ninja school instructors. People in the Soul Society are vastly different from those in Konoha. The Shinigami responsible for teaching Kido did not scold Naruto, but instead patiently and gently guided him. After understanding Naruto's situation, the teacher did not think it was a lack of talent but attributed the strange power to Naruto's enormous spiritual power, which he had yet to fully control, causing the illusion of interference. This was considered a genius problem, something that could be solved with more practice in spiritual power control. With the teacher's comfort and encouragement from his classmates, Naruto gradually gained confidence, similar to when he studied the sexy technique. He wasn't incapable of performing all ninjutsu. The sexy technique he worked hard on was quite outstanding. His progress in Kido, though slow, became visibly better. His studies went smoothly. His life was also going well. His classmates liked him very much and took good care of him. It wasn't related to talent but to his age. Naruto was the youngest in the class, whether in terms of his 12 years of life before death or the 3 years after. 2 months later, with new students settling in, those who were to drop out had already done so, and it was time for the Zanpakuto ceremony. In the classroom, the instructor announced loudly, "Finally, the time has come, the day to bestow your Zanpakuto upon you. From today on, you will be called Shinigami apprentices until you graduate." Speaking, he knocked on the table. "It is time to tell you about the graduation rules of Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts. There are 2 ways to graduate. One way is to complete 6 years of study. Even in our class, the most outstanding class this year, this method is the only graduation option for the vast majority of you. The other way is to master the initial release Shirkai, allowing for early graduation. Such geniuses are rare. It is even rarer for a first-year student to master the initial release and graduate. But perhaps this year we will have one." Almost as soon as the teacher's words fell, everyone's eyes unanimously turned to one person, a small blonde boy sitting in the front row. "Teacher, Naruto scratched his head and smiled sheepishly. The teacher ruffled his hair. "I have high hopes for you to become the youngest captain." With the other hand, the teacher grabbed a shallow hit, a sachi, and placed it in front of Naruto. "The Zanpakuto being distributed to you now do not have names yet. Or rather, they only have a standardized name for now called Asachi. Remember one thing, the Asachi is not given to you. It is temporarily leased by the Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts until you graduate and join the Godei 13 Division Imperial Guards, or other organizations such as the Amitsukido Punishment Force. It will not be officially granted to you. Now, remember these words firmly. During the lease period, the Asachi must not be given to others. It must not be lost. If any of these situations occur, or if the Asachi is damaged or broken, you must report it to the Academy immediately. Otherwise, you will face severe punishment." The teacher's face and tone were exceptionally serious. The students nodded solemnly in agreement. Only after the last person had received an Asachi did the teacher's expression soften slightly. "Now, as taught in previous lessons, try the Blade Zen, Jinzen. Use your spiritual power to feel the voice of your sword, Blade Zen. It is a practice of the Shinigamis. In meditation, using spiritual power to resonate with the Zanpakuto, achieving the purpose of communicating with the Zanpakuto. Being able to communicate with the sword is the first step toward its release. Only by knowing its name can one use its power." Naruto closed his eyes and placed the sword on his lap. As soon as his spiritual power touched the sword, his consciousness was suddenly pulled with great force, as if a deep pit had opened beneath him, causing him to fall weightlessly. When he came to his senses again, he found himself in a damp, dark underground like sewer. Naruto looked around, bewildered. Where is this? Another world? But he quickly dismissed the thought. He could feel a familiar power here, the power that interfered with him when he cast Kido. This is likely the inner world the teacher had mentioned. However, generally, mastering the initial release involves merely hearing the sword's voice. Delving into the inner world is something only Shinigamis who have mastered the initial release and further studied Bankai can do. Is his talent that strong? Moreover, where is the spirit of his Zanpakuto? Naruto stood up and walked along the path. He soon reached the end. A towering red-barred gate blocked the way. Behind it was dark and seemed to house something. Heavy breathing, undisguised malice. A glimpse of crimson, like all-devouring flames. "Hey kid!" From behind the gate, the massive creature stirred and called out. Naruto responded, "I'm here. Come a little closer." Called again. Naruto approached. With a whoosh, a fierce wind blew. A huge claw ruthlessly stabbed, clanging against the gate. with long claw blades piercing through the gap, stopping just at Naruto's throat, almost piercing it. "You've got guts, kid." Daring not to dodge, Naruto grinned brightly. "Why should I dodge? You won't hurt me. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. What is your name? Can you tell me?" A fool's worry is a metaphor for unfounded and unnecessary worries. The paw was withdrawn. A dark shadow loomed overhead, and a gigantic face pressed against the gate. A triangular face, golden pupils, and covered in fur. It was a fox. Its face alone was taller than Naruto, a fox of grand stature. It grinned, revealing sharp, menacing teeth. "What did they tell you? What made you have such an illusion?" Mocking, sneering, and with a strange tone. Naruto frowned, slightly puzzled. He disliked this blatant malice, but his teacher had said that perhaps the way a Zanpakuto spirit expressed emotions varied. Sometimes friendly, sometimes fierce. These attitudes were tests to see if the wielder was truly qualified to fight with it. The lessons he learned flashed through his mind like flipping pages of a book. "You are the manifestation of my inner strength," he responded. "You will be my most important companion for life." The Nine Tails couldn't help but laugh. Inner strength? Companion? How ridiculous! Has the group in Konoha fallen to such naivety? Naruto was stunned. What did he just hear? Konoha? How could it be Konoha? How could this fox utter such a word? How could it have anything to do with Konoha? He instinctively retorted. The Nine Tails sneered, mocking in return. How could it not have anything to do with Konoha? "I am already dead," Naruto interrupted, speaking earnestly, no longer in Konoha. The Nine Tails narrowed its eyes, somewhat bristling. "Dead? No, he didn't even feel it. Suddenly dead?" Such serious words coming from the short guy sent shivers down one's spine. Naruto sat cross-legged, recounting his experiences over the past 3 years. The terms Soul Society, Shinigami, Shino Academy, Godei 13, one after another, entered the Nine Tails' ears. The Pure Land. It had heard of this when it was first born, accompanying the Sage of Six Paths, Otsutsuki Hagoromo. As for the Shinigami, it had seen it when it was in the belly of the first Jinchuriki of Konoha, Uzumaki Mito. But what Naruto said was completely different. Lies made up by Konoha? Unlikely. Such lies were meaningless and couldn't deceive it. And with its knowledge and experience, these things sounded seamless, not fake. This kid's thoughts were easy to understand, not like lying. So that's the situation, Naruto concluded. Whether you were born in my heart in Konoha or here in the Soul Society, we are now partners. Would you tell me your name? The Nine Tails grinned, exhaling heavily. You speak convincingly, but it's hard for me to believe you. How about this, kid? Let me feel those things you mentioned. Naruto was puzzled. Feel? What do you want me to do? The Nine Tails pondered, its gaze moving away from the seals on the gate. Consider it your reward for entertaining me this time. Stop resisting my chakra. I will control it well and use your senses to feel the world. It wanted Naruto to remove the seal and release it. But the things he said, though different from its understanding of the underworld, sounded true. Its body was still half sealed in the soul of that fourth Hokage guy. Compared to temporary freedom, restoring its body was more important. If it's not related to Konoha, will you tell me your name? Naruto stubbornly clung to the question. Bang! A paw slammed against the gate, and the Nine Tails, impatient with the question, retorted. I might consider it, kid. His power surged, driving Naruto out. Darkness overcame him. He felt that weightless falling sensation again. Before opening his eyes, an extremely strong stench invaded his nostrils. Something was rotting. Naruto opened his eyes and looked around. It was not the bright and spacious classroom. Instead, he found himself lying on a bed in a narrow and cramped room. The room seemed somewhat familiar. It was his place in Konoha. He sat up and looked around in a daze, following the familiar smells. Uncleared instant noodle cups, an open milk carton, some half-eaten fish and mushrooms that could barely be considered side dishes. Memories flashed through his mind. Instant noodles had been almost his only staple food in the past few years. Not many people were willing to sell him anything, so he could only stockpile this cheap instant food. Fish and mushrooms. He had gotten those from the mountains, which wasn't easy. But wasn't he already dead? How did he return to Konoha, to this nearly forgotten residence of his? What about the not-so-easy yet joyful days in the Soul Society, in the Shino Academy? This doesn't seem to be the Soul Society you mentioned. Kid. Ninetales' slightly angry voice sounded in Naruto's ear. Naruto snapped back to reality. Can you see? No, Ninetales replied impatiently. But I told you before, I can sense the world through your senses. So, where is the evidence of the Soul Society? Naruto didn't speak. He was puzzled too. Was it all just a dream? But such a long and vivid dream. He frowned, about to get up from the bed to check outside. But a sharp pain in his waist made him feel something hard poking him. Naruto looked down. It was a sheathed sword, its guard pressing against his abdomen. His spirits lifted. It was an Asachi. He reached out, grasped the hilt, and picked it up. Can you see this sword? Naruto asked, his eyes burning with excitement. Ninetales was puzzled. A sword? What sword? Its voice halted abruptly. Huh. That's strange. You actually have a weapon in your hand. It had seen many types of ninja weapons, whether ordinary kunai, shuriken, or the 7 bizarre swords of the mist. Even the Bashozen and the Shikasaiken 7-star sword of the Sage of 6 Paths. All of them were different from the sword it sensed now. No matter how unique those weapons were, they existed tangibly in this world. But this sword in Naruto's hand, if not for the reminder, it would have been overlooked. It existed in a state of near non-existence, connected to Naruto's aura, almost as if it were part of his body. This is the Asachi I told you about. Naruto's voice was filled with excitement. Although I'm not sure why we're back in Konoha, the Asachi came back with me. This means the Soul Society and the Shino Academy were not a dream. They really exist. Ninetales snorted dismissively. Now you should tell me your name, Naruto said confidently. Ninetales sneered. Just a weapon. That doesn't prove anything. It was also puzzled. Such a weapon. It was hard to say it was forged by ninjas. In its long lifespan, it had indeed seen some ninjutsu related to souls, such as the spirit transformation technique and the Reaper Death Seal. But even the Shinigami summoned by the latter didn't have a weapon with this feel. Instinctively, it felt that Naruto wasn't lying. The Soul Society should exist. But without witnessing it firsthand, it was hard to believe. Naruto held back, not shouting. He gripped the Asachi, pondering why he suddenly returned to Konoha. Because, entering the inner world, he tried Zanpakuto meditation again, returning to that sewer and, after being chased out by Ninetales, still found himself in his small room, not back in the Shino Academy. He tried various other strange methods, but none worked. Couldn't go back? Naruto looked through the window at the Hokage rock in the distance, clenching the Asachi in his hand. No, there's still a chance. In the Godai 13, there was the 13th squad responsible for purification, which would dispatch Shinigami to the living world. Konoha would certainly be no exception. As long as he could find that Shinigami, he could return to the Soul Society. For now, first, figure out what has changed in Konoha during his absence. But it was unclear how to explain his 3-year disappearance and his unchanged appearance. However, the unchanged state of his house and the lack of attention, no one would care about him, right? Naruto tidied up his room, threw away the trash. He found a little over 1,000 assets from the drawer and headed to the nearest convenience store. Just at the door, an old man in an apron rushed out with a broom in panic. Get out, you jinx! I told you, you're not allowed near my store. Naruto looked up at him, surprised. Not surprised by his attitude. Konoha was full of such people, who didn't hide their malice towards him. But that after 3 years in the Soul Society, the convenience store owner's appearance had not changed at all. He then tiptoed to look at the electronic clock inside the store, completely different from his mechanical alarm clock, showing the time and date. It wasn't 3 years later. It was still the day he left Konoha for the Soul Society, as if time had stopped when he left, only resuming upon his return. "You scoundrel, didn't you hear what I said?" The store owner didn't care what Naruto was thinking, his defiant attitude and scrutinizing gaze inflaming his anger further. He raised the broom high and struck at Naruto. But the wooden stick didn't hit Naruto's head as it used to. In the split second he acted, a cold flash swept through. The kunai cut through the soft wood. The broom head fell to the ground, kicking up dust. "You bastard! My broom!" Anger overwhelmed the convenience store owner's mind. He didn't realize what it meant for the other person to fight back. He only cared about his belongings. He raised his hand, wanting to attack again. "Damn you, you never bring anything good." Before he could finish his sentence, Naruto grabbed his wrist, tripped him, and threw him to the ground. With a swing of the kunai, the convenience store owner looked up, still wanting to continue cursing. With a clang, the kunai nailed the ground just past his nose, vibrating slightly, fragile like a violin string. He was momentarily dazed. A sharp pain shot through his tailbone, spreading electrically throughout his body, causing his hair to stand on end. The pain brought him back to his senses. His arm was twisted at an unnatural angle, not broken, but the muscles and tendons were stretched to their limit, causing severe discomfort. These sensations overpowered the anger in his mind. He began to panic, realizing he was being hunted. What do you want to do?" The demon fox. "To buy something." Naruto continued looking into the store, staring at the clock. "Don't worry, I will pay. Will you welcome me this time?" The convenience store owner gritted his teeth. "I won't welcome you." Naruto applied more force, increasing the angle of the arm twist. The store owner broke into a sweat, hurriedly changing his tune. "Welcome, welcome. Course you're welcome." Naruto gave a cold smile, grabbed the kunai, and threw it back into his pocket before walking into the convenience store. If it had been 3 years ago, he wouldn't have used this method. But during his 3 years in the Soul Society, he learned that in some necessary situations, violence was far more effective at solving problems than other methods. Food was not a necessity in Hokage. Ordinary souls wouldn't feel hunger. Only souls with spiritual power had the need to eat. Thus, the price of food was extremely high. If one didn't want to starve, they had to resort to some unsavory methods. In the first half year, Naruto survived using this method. It wasn't until later, when he found a job and had a stable source of income, that he gave up robbery and spent a year repaying the total cost of the food he had taken. Walking into the convenience store, the numbers on the clock ticked away. It wasn't broken. So, the 3 years he spent in the Soul Society had barely passed in Konoha or even hadn't moved at all. He pondered this question while selecting ingredients. A piece of meat, 2 potatoes, some seasoning, and a bag of rice, costing less than 600 ryo. This was the market price. Naruto didn't take advantage of the situation. But after he left, the convenience store owner couldn't wait to close the door and report to the Konoha police. "This is outrageous. I knew we shouldn't have let that damn kid into the ninja school. Now he learned a few skills and dares to attack innocent, pitiful people like us. What about in the future?" Hokage office. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was reviewing official documents. A ninja knocked on the door and entered. "Lord Third, that Uzumaki kid has caused trouble again." Sarutobi Hiruzen, accustomed to these incidents, spoke calmly. "What prank has Naruto pulled this time?" He had a conflict with a convenience store owner and injured him. The ninja gritted his teeth, extremely angry. Upon hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression turned serious. Uzumaki Naruto was a troublemaker, but previously it was just pranks limited to the school grounds, aimed at attracting attention. But now, he actually injured someone? This was the first time a breach of the bottom line. It had escalated into a real conflict. "Where is Naruto now?" Sarutobi Hiruzen asked. The ninja replied, "He went home." Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed in relief. If he went home, the situation didn't need to escalate further. "Got it. I will give him a good talking to." This time, Naruto really went too far. Uzumaki Naruto's residence was not far from the Hokage office, in the village center's low-rent apartment building. It didn't take Sarutobi Hiruzen long to get there. He raised his hand and knocked on the door. Frowning, he was filled with doubt. He had always been very strict in his teachings to Naruto, and Naruto had always been obedient. Even when he was bullied to such an extent, he never fought back. But today, the door quickly opened, and Naruto, wearing an apron and holding a kitchen knife, came out to greet him. When he saw Sarutobi Hiruzen, his eyes lit up. Third Hokage Grandpa. In Konoha, he was the person who treated Naruto the best. Bearing the title of Hokage, he was also the most powerful and knowledgeable person in the entire village. Naruto had really wanted to see him, whether from emotions or the questions filling his mind, why he went to the Soul Society, why he came back, and why he hadn't changed even though 3 years had passed in Konoha. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked through Naruto and into the house, feeling a bit dazed. A house where you could see the end from the entrance. Clean, tidy, only ingredients on the table, potatoes, meat, and rice cooking on the stove. It didn't look like Naruto's home at all. Such a big change in just a few days. But the important matter was the hitting incident. These changes weren't as important. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and asked, "Naruto, today a convenience store owner came to complain, saying you hit him. What was the conflict between you two? So he came for this matter." Naruto corrected him. "I didn't hit him. He attacked me first." Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded. "Why did he attack you?" "I wanted to buy some ingredients to cook," Naruto said confidently. "But as soon as I entered his convenience store, before I said anything, he wanted to hit me. I just stopped him from attacking me and wanted to do business with him. I paid for the things I bought." Sarutobi Hiruzen felt slightly relieved. So that's how it was? It wasn't an intentional revenge attack, which was a relief. He softened his tone. "Even so, Naruto, you could have come to me. Fighting isn't a good thing, Naruto. Remember what I taught you. No matter what, you shouldn't." Naruto was stunned. 2 memories surged in his mind. One was from the Soul Society, where he was starving and had to snatch food. The shop owner chasing him with a knife, cursing and showing a vicious face. But after he worked to pay off his debt, the shop owner was very relieved and said that Naruto hadn't done anything wrong. He just had to show that he couldn't be robbed easily, as weakness would lead to being bullied. If he thought Naruto was problematic, he would have called the Shinigami long ago. Becoming ugly to survive was not a sin. Naruto's willingness to make amends made the situation ultimately beautiful. The other memory was older, related to the third Hokage, fragmented. Every time he fought back when bullied as a child, the third Hokage would appear to comfort him. It felt warm then, as only the third Hokage cared for him in the whole village. But now looking back, those who bullied him were never punished, not even scolded. They continued to bully him the next day. Those comforting words now seemed to teach him to be weak and endure. In comparison, Naruto found he preferred the shop owner's curses. "Do I need to find the third Hokage every time I want to buy something?" Naruto interrupted Sarutobi Hiruzen. Sarutobi Hiruzen was taken aback. Naruto spoke decisively. "When the third Hokage is around, they respect you and let me buy things. But once you leave, they won't welcome me again. I can only stockpile a lot of stuff each time, but I paid for the things I bought. Not a penny less. If he tries to hit me and I stop him, and he gets hurt, that's his own fault. Am I wrong? Am I supposed to just take the beatings and curses without fighting back? Am I supposed to live on instant noodles every day? Is it wrong to want to eat some normal food? Am I supposed to fish and hunt in the mountains for food?" His pent-up emotions exploded in a series of questions, like shurikens, leaving Sarutobi Hiruzen stunned, unable to respond. It wasn't that he didn't know how to answer. He just didn't expect Naruto, who had been enduring for so many years, to suddenly and without warning, explode. "Naruto, there may be some misunderstandings, but the village is a whole." Sarutobi Hiruzen began his usual speech, trying to morally bind Naruto with the greater good of the village. Naruto wasn't buying it. Or rather, the old Naruto would have cared about the village as his only place of belonging. But now, he interrupted Sarutobi Hiruzen again. Third Hokage Grandpa, if the problem lies with them, please solve their problem. Why come to solve the problem of me, the victim? With a bang, the door closed heavily. Naruto didn't want to talk to Sarutobi Hiruzen anymore, let alone share the doubts and secrets in his mind. The accompanying ninja shouted, "Uzumaki Naruto, is this how you treat the Hokage? Come out and apologize properly." His shouting was stopped. Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hand. "No need. It's my oversight," he sighed, feeling heavy-hearted and a bit ashamed. His eyes fell on the door. He could hear the sound of a knife chopping on the cutting board inside. He really owed the fourth Hokage a lot. Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't knock on the door again. He just listened outside for a while, hearing the chopping of knives, the bubbling of soup, and the aroma of meat wafting through the air. Compared to Naruto developing his own ideas, what was happening now seemed even harder for him to accept. The place that once housed the Jinchuriki now began to have the feeling of a home. Sarutobi Hiruzen consoled himself. This wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, he had always hoped for this, wishing for Naruto's well-being. If the fourth Hokage could see this, he would be relieved too. But why was there a bit of unease? Perhaps it was because he still knew too little about Naruto. He turned and left. He decided to observe carefully during this period. A Jinchuriki must not go astray. Uzumaki Naruto had changed significantly. His classmates at the Ninja Academy were the first to notice. The boy who was disliked just a few days ago suddenly became less annoying. The most noticeable change was in his appearance. Naruto had always worn a dirty, high-collared orange tracksuit, looking crude and sloppy. But now he finally took off that tracksuit. He was now wearing a plain white hoodie without any patterns, which complemented his blonde hair, paired with gray cropped pants, giving him a fresh and clean look. Uzumaki seems much more pleasing to the eye now. During lunch break, Yamanaka Ino said this to Haruno Sakura as they ate lunch together. Haruno Sakura followed her gaze. Uzumaki Naruto didn't seem much different from usual, at least in her eyes. He was still sitting alone, eating lunch by himself. He even makes his own bento? She quickly noticed something unusual. Naruto had a bento box. Although the side dishes and rice didn't look as exquisite as those made by her parents, they still seemed quite tasty. Yamanaka Ino hesitated. "I don't think so. He used to always eat bread, right?" She wasn't sure either. Before this period, who would pay attention to Uzumaki Naruto? Even if he looks a bit better, he's still far from Sasuke. Haruno Sakura crossed her arms, her gaze moving past Naruto to Uchiha Sasuke sitting not far away. A loser is a loser. Maybe this is just his new way to attract attention. She didn't like Naruto. Yamanaka Ino shook her head without saying anything, but she didn't quite agree with this view. Compared to the students, the teachers at the Ninja Academy noticed more of Naruto's internal changes. He started to study seriously. No more skipping classes, no more sleeping in class, and his grades were excellent. He transformed from the dead last to an outstanding student almost overnight. However, most teachers still didn't like him, and some even disliked him more. News of Naruto hitting the convenience store owner had spread. He faced no punishment, and the third Hokage even favored Naruto, making nearby shops do business with him. They had almost the same opinion as Haruno Sakura. They thought this annoying kid couldn't possibly study well and would just lose interest quickly. Especially with graduation approaching, what's the use of pretending now? Naruto was genuinely interested in the knowledge of being a ninja. He used to find these things boring, with no encouragement from teachers and no welcome from classmates, so he had no motivation to study. But since returning from the Shino Academy, reading the textbooks again was a revelation. Understanding chakra and its definitions, basic physics, the application of the three basic techniques. Although, in essence, chakra and spiritual power are two completely different forces, one from the body and one from the soul. But the techniques to use them were the same. Ryuraku, spirit coils. A technique taught at the Shino Academy to sense and recognize spiritual energy. could also be applied through chakra. This allowed him to identify people around him by chakra's aura without seeing them. With a basic understanding, he could also successfully perform Kido after a few training sessions. Of course, the parts in the books about the will of fire were still boring, dry, and uninteresting. The last class of the new week. Yumino Irika banged the podium heavily. 1 week until the graduation exam, and you will become real ninjas. So today is a practical lesson. Everyone gather at the training ground. The class groaned. Compared to training and practical lessons, they preferred theoretical classes. The latter was boring, but teachers wouldn't say anything if they slacked off. The former, in addition to the practical lesson, there would definitely be physical training afterward. No one wanted to run 3 kilometers, but the students obediently left their seats, some through the windows, some through the doors, heading to the training ground. After lining up, the students sat around the field. Anyone want to volunteer? Irika raised his hand. Naruto immediately stood up. Irika-sensei, I want to train with Uchiha Sasuke. He spoke with determination. In recent days, the teacher and classmates had not changed their views about him. He knew clearly that he lacked an opportunity for the teacher and classmates to understand his changes. And now, the opportunity has arrived. Irika was about to refuse. Although Naruto was improving, he was clearly not on the same level as Uchiha Sasuke. However, before he could politely decline, the instructions from the 3rd Hokage a few days ago resurfaced in his mind. He quickly changed his tone. All right, since you're so persistent, Naruto, Uchiha Sasuke, come and have a practical training session. The students were astonished. Previously, Irika-sensei would never have agreed so easily to Naruto's unreasonable requests. Uchiha Sasuke stood up coldly and walked to the center of the field with Naruto. First round of practical training. Uzumaki Naruto versus Uchiha Sasuke. Begin. Irika-sensei picked up his notebook, stepped out of the field, and announced the start. The battle did not erupt immediately. Uchiha Sasuke, with his hands in his pockets, looked coldly at the person opposite him. Uzumaki Naruto, you will never be my match. What we bear is different. A guy of your caliber doesn't have the qualifications to be compared to me. Irika-sensei should have arranged a more interesting opponent for me. Cheers from the girls erupted. Naruto remained silent. Chakra gathered at his feet and burst forth in an instant, stretching his figure like a line. Right as Uchiha Sasuke finished his sentence. A golden flash, those cheers seemed to celebrate this moment. Uchiha Sasuke's pupils widened. So fast, he barely raised his hand, forming a cross in front of him. But Naruto's hand had already grabbed his face and slammed it down hard. Caliber. Does something like that need to be mentioned? A thud hit the ground. Dust billowed, mingling with Naruto's calm voice. With one hand raised in a fist, the other reached to his back, hooking 2 kunai with his index and middle fingers. Punch to the dust. A crunching sound. A block of hard wood was sent flying. A substitution jutsu. There was movement in the smoke. Naruto was not surprised at all. In his eyes, ribbons floated. Those were ribbons representing chakra aura, which only he could see. There were 2 representing Uchiha Sasuke. One circled behind the crowd, the other charged openly to the left. He waved his hand. Kunai shot towards those 2 directions. You have indeed made some progress, but you are still far from me. Sasuke's voice came from the left. Naruto ignored it, not even glancing to the left. That was a clone. The real Sasuke was. He reached out and grabbed the thicker aura ribbon, twisting around. Sure enough, he was behind him. Dust-covered face, blood-stained forehead. Having failed to avoid the first strike, Uchiha Sasuke looked extremely disheveled, raising a kunai to strike. Clang. But since that was the case, the kunai collided with the one Naruto had shot earlier, falling to the ground. The clone on the left was shot into a puff of smoke by another kunai. Sasuke was shocked. How did he detect it? After being hit the first time, using the substitution jutsu to escape, he immediately used the clone jutsu, and even let the clone speak to distract. He didn't even look, so confident he was behind him, As thoughts surged, another golden stream of light. Naruto stepped closer, chopping down with one hand, reaching to his back with the other. This time, Sasuke was prepared, hands no longer in his pockets, barely able to keep up with this speed, raising his hands to defend. But the attack suddenly came from below, hooking his calf, causing a sudden shift in his balance. Naruto easily flipped Sasuke over. A thud on the ground. Sasuke tried to move again. A slight prick at his neck. An old, no longer sharp kunai pressed against his throat. "You lost?" "Uchiha Sasuke," Naruto announced softly. Uchiha Sasuke, unwilling but unrefuting. He looked at Naruto, shock and confusion in his eyes, unable to understand. How did this loser change so much in just a few days? Irika and the other students were also incredulous. Uchiha Sasuke actually lost. Naruto straightened up, looking calmly at Sasuke. "You carry a heavy burden, but that's no reason to underestimate your opponent. You are not yet a strong person. You do not have the right to look down on others from above." Sasuke gritted his teeth, clenching his fists, lowered his head. He couldn't even beat a loser now? Naruto paused slightly, raising his voice, not just speaking to Sasuke, but also to Irika-sensei and his classmates. "The result is clear. I am not a loser. I am also a genius." Readers should understand that Naruto is a kid who wants to be recognized. Those ribbons that Naruto are seeing are the visualization of Ryoryoku, spiritual power. Irika stammered as he announced the result. Uzumaki Naruto wins. The time was too short and the end came too quickly. The result was also quite unexpected. The whole fight couldn't be described as evenly matched. It was simply Uchiha Sasuke being beaten unilaterally. From beginning to end, did Uchiha Sasuke even make a move? He only launched one sneak attack with a combination of substitution jutsu and clone jutsu, coming from behind, but Naruto predicted and blocked it. When did Naruto become so strong? Just a few days of training and he achieved such results? On the roof of the Ninja Academy building, Sarutobi Hiruzen stood on the terrace and asked the ninja beside him, who had most of his face covered, silver hair, and only one eye visible. "Kakashi, what do you think?" Hatake Kakashi spoke softly. "Their physical abilities are about the same. Uchiha Sasuke might even be a bit stronger in terms of strength, but Uzumaki Naruto has more combat experience. He also uses chakra to increase his speed, a technique similar to the body flicker technique. His instincts are very sharp, worthy of the Uzumaki clan's bloodline, likely awakened a sensing ability. That's why Naruto won so decisively. If he had been disturbed by the clone jutsu, or if Sasuke had activated his Sharingan, the outcome would have been uncertain." Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled. "It just reminded me of the fourth Hokage. What about you?" Hatake Kakashi didn't respond. "One is the last of the Uchiha clan's bloodline. The other is the child of your teacher. The fourth Hokage," Sarutobi Hiruzen continued. "I intend to make you their team leader. If anyone in Konoha can teach them, it would be you." Hatake Kakashi agreed. "Yes, one more thing," Sarutobi Hiruzen said, staring at Naruto, who had returned to sit in the corner of the crowd. Naruto wasn't like this before. He suddenly changed his personality and showed his talent. Umbu found no results from their investigation. He had no contact with suspicious people, and the seal on the Nine Tails wasn't broken. "Find out the reason. We can't afford to lose the Jinchuriki." Hatake Kakashi agreed again. Sarutobi Hiruzen opened his mouth, hesitated for a moment, but didn't say the words. Be kind to him. He felt there was no need to say it. Uzumaki Naruto was the child of Namake's Minato, Hatake Kakashi's teacher, the fourth Hokage. By reason, they were like brothers. What brother wouldn't take care of his younger brother? Sarutobi Hiruzen left. The Hokage's work was very busy. Hatake Kakashi stayed on the terrace, his gaze occasionally sweeping over Naruto, but mostly lingering on Uchiha Sasuke, who wore a sullen, resentful expression. The life of the genius Uzumaki Naruto did not improve. He thought that after showing his talent, He would start a life similar to that at the Shino Academy, but it seemed nothing had changed. Classmates still didn't want to be his friends. Teachers still disliked him. Even some girls' attitudes towards him became worse. How dare he beat up their handsome Uchiha? Naruto didn't feel disappointed. Since that time when the third Hokage came to hold him accountable, he had lowered his expectations. He was just puzzled. The days at the Soul Society and Shino Academy had taught him a lesson. Hate requires a reason. Most people treat strangers with a peaceful attitude. Love is the same. He had already become excellent, given the reason for love, yet they still treated him this way. This could only mean that their reason for hating him was far heavier than the reason for loving him he had given. Not because he was an orphan, not because he used to be mischievous. What could it be? Looking at the Hokage rock in the distance, for giant faces, Naruto had long memorized the achievements and deeds of these four. The first Hokage unified the ninja world, the second founded the Ninja Academy, the third was still alive and kicking. The fourth sacrificed himself young, saving the village from the Nine Tails. Wait, the Nine Tails? His inner power was also a fox, unfamiliar with the Soul Society and Siriidii, but aware of Konoha. Naruto had not connected these two events before, but now he had to consider it. He entered his inner world. Kid, don't bother me. The Nine Tails became somewhat irritable as soon as it saw him. Naruto raised his head and looked up at those golden eyes. I heard a rumor when I was young that the fourth Hokage saved the village from a demon fox. Are you that demon fox? The Nine Tails grinned, unashamed. Yes, it's me. Have you finally figured it out? I am not some companion in your so-called friendship game. Kid, I wish I could eat you. Naruto said nothing and took another step forward. He didn't feel particularly special about the fox inside him being the demon fox, even if it was the reason he was ostracized by the village. Hatred? Maybe a little. But now, Naruto didn't care about the village's opinion of him. He had another place to belong, and the Soul Society was much better than Konoha. He only looked straight ahead. The red barred gate, the seal pasted at the door's crevice, formed a fact named Forbidden. So the reason you hate me is because the fourth Hokage sealed you inside me? He asked softly, gripping the source of the Nine Tails' hatred. The Nine Tails said nothing, just grunted. That blonde man? Naruto asked again, why me? Did the fourth Hokage randomly pick a child and it happened to be me, an orphan? Someone who could threaten the village's very existence shouldn't be inside a child like him. When fighting for food in the Soul Society, the older kids would stand in front of the younger ones. The Nine Tails' expression suddenly became strange. It leaned closer and scrutinized Naruto. Didn't the people of Konoha tell you about this? Naruto shook his head in confusion. I guessed that you were the demon fox on my own. If he hadn't gone to the Soul Society, he might never have known there was a fox inside him. Kid, let me tell you. The Nine Tails extended its paw, pointing at Naruto's forehead, laughing fiercely, speaking arrogantly. Of course the fourth Hokage sealed me inside you. He had no other choice. After all, you are the fourth Hokage's son. Before he died, you were the only one around who could be a Jinchuriki vessel. Naruto froze. His facial features began to twist in disbelief. His eyes were vacant yet viciously glaring at the Nine Tails. His father, whom he had never met, without even a photo or known name, turned out to be the fourth Hokage. How is that possible? Naruto couldn't believe it. His experiences didn't allow him to believe it. If he were the fourth Hokage's son, he would be the son of a hero. Would a hero's child be hated by the entire village? Would a hero's child have no friends? I did not deceive you. The Nine Tails grinned, emotions excited, as if finding an incredible toy. On the contrary, Konoha has been deceiving you, never telling you the truth. They only want to use you as a weapon of war. What's the point of a village like this existing? Come on, remove the seal. Don't you want to use my power? Remove the seal and you can. Together, let's destroy this village. Naruto took a deep breath. even though he didn't need to in the inner world. He wanted to find third Hokage grandpa to ask if it was true. But another memory emerged. That was when he was very young. He had asked third Hokage grandpa for photos of his parents, only to be told there were none. Asked for their names only to be brushed off. Then, a few days ago, the third Hokage was no longer trustworthy. He didn't want Naruto to know his parents' identities. The Ninetales was still noisy. Shut up. Naruto glared hatefully. I won't listen to you. The Ninetales squinted. I like that look in your eyes. But even now, you still want to protect Konoha? Naruto clenched his fist. Konoha, I'm not protecting it. Since you were sealed in me by my father, I will find him and get answers. Not listen to you. You, the murderer. The Ninetales snorted coldly and withdrew its head. It didn't explain what happened that day, nor did it want to mention the Mangekyo Sharingan. Even if sealed inside someone else, as the strongest tailed beast, it still had its dignity. Being controlled, it was too humiliating to speak of. Naruto left the space on his own. Lying on the bed, his mind was in turmoil. He really wanted to return to the Soul Society quickly. The teachers or upperclassmen at the Shino Academy would surely find a solution for him, at least. They were willing to listen to his feelings. During his time back in Konoha, he had been searching, but he hadn't encountered a Shinigami. The monsters known as hollows with white masks recorded in the textbooks were also nowhere to be seen. Of course, this was normal. There was only one Shinigami in an area, and the chances of encountering one were not high. What troubled him more was how to face that fox. A fox that resided in his body. The enemy who killed his father? These complex emotions made him detest Konoha even more. The villagers' hatred towards him was hard to understand and completely contradicted what he knew. This place couldn't find anyone to talk to about his true feelings. It was not a home at all. While Naruto was searching for his fellow Shinigami, the graduation exam came as scheduled. The test was simple. Just successfully perform the clone technique and make the clones look somewhat realistic to graduate. For the current Naruto, this was no challenge. But compared to 3 years ago when he was eager to graduate and become a full-fledged ninja, Naruto didn't think graduation was a good thing at all. He sat on the swing at the school gate, watching the bustling crowd coldly. Students who passed the exam were praised by their parents. Those who didn't pass cried in their parents' arms. There were quite a few orphan students like him who didn't have parents. But unlike him, they had friends and teachers around. Even Uchiha Sasuke had a few girls chattering around him. Suddenly, a rustling noise came from behind. Someone with chakra was approaching him. It was Mizuki, one of the few teachers at the Ninja Academy, like Irika, who wasn't overly harsh to him. Naruto immediately turned to look. Mizuki stopped 10 steps away, wearing a gentle smile. Naruto, you're really perceptive. Is there something you need? Mizuki-sensei? Naruto looked at him. He had come to find him. But their relationship wasn't good enough for Mizuki to come privately to congratulate him. Mizuki didn't answer the question. Instead, he looked at the crowd at the school gate and sighed. They're really happy, with parents by their side, with friends around them. Only Naruto is excluded. Naruto didn't speak, gripping the rope of the swing tightly. You're a very pitiful person. Mizuki sighed. Squatting beside Naruto, everyone hates you. Naruto asked casually, does Mizuki-sensei think so too? Mizuki shook his head decisively. Of course not, I feel sorry for you. Do you want to know why the villagers hate you? Naruto's eyes became sharp immediately. Why? Of course, he wanted to know. It's a secret. Mizuki lowered his voice, full of temptation, recorded in the Scroll of Seals. That Scroll of Seals is hidden in the Hokage's office. If you want to know the secret, steal that book. Naruto leaned back slightly. Looking at Mizuki, his expression changed subtly. He was no longer the naive kid who had just arrived in the Soul Society 3 years ago. He could tell that this guy was trying to incite him to steal the Scroll of Seals. He wanted to use him to achieve his own goals. Ulterior motives. So, Mizuki-sensei should know that secret, right? Naruto didn't expose him. He wanted to understand how others saw him and why they harbored hatred. Mizuki was stunned. If Mizuki-sensei doesn't know the secret, how would you know it's recorded in the Scroll of Seals? Naruto pressed on. Mizuki shook his head. The situation was beyond his expectations. He thought this fool would be easily manipulated, and he would take the bait with just a few words. Unexpectedly, he had some brains, but everything was still under control. He was confident. "You're a good kid." Mizuki sighed, pretending to be sorrowful. "I just don't want to believe that rumor." He paused, as if struggling intensely within himself. After a long time, he spoke heavily. 12 years ago, when the fourth Hokage sealed the nine-tailed fox, have you heard of it? Upon seeing Naruto nod, Mizuki continued. Since then, there has been an unwritten rule in the village, only kept secret from you, and that is the rule of never mentioning that you are the demon fox. Just by teaching you these past years, I have found that you are a good kid, unwilling to believe this matter. Perhaps only the scrolls personally recorded by the Hokage can prove whether this is true or false. Naruto looked at Mizuki in shock, yet he felt an immense clarity within. Everything became clear. No wonder the villagers hated him so much. They didn't know he was the fourth Hokage's son, but instead saw him as the demon fox. But why did the villagers have this perception? Could someone be deliberately hiding his true identity? Mizuki gently placed his hand on Naruto's head, his tone both gentle and firm. Go verify the truth of this information. At night, the security at the Hokage building is the weakest. Naruto suddenly interrupted. Mizuki-sensei. Mizuki paused, puzzled. What is it, Naruto? Mizuki-sensei. Come with me to see the third Hokage. Naruto spoke firmly. He wanted to know if what Mizuki said was true. Was it a lie concocted to trick him into stealing the Scroll of Seals? Or was he using the truth? Mizuki was startled, feeling as if a thorn was pricking his back. This rule is a command from the third Hokage. Asking him won't get you the real answer. Everything is recorded in the Scroll of Seals. Only by obtaining it will you know the result. See the third Hokage? That's impossible. There's no harm in telling Naruto the truth. But once he hears the goal is the Scroll of Seals, that would expose everything. Naruto grabbed Mizuki's wrist firmly. Mizuki-sensei, let's go. He wasn't interested in the Scroll of Seals. After all, the truth. He already knew it. He was the fourth Hokage's son, and he did have a fox inside him. Now he just wanted to know what the third Hokage would say to him. Mizuki's face twisted. He cursed inwardly. What is this? This brat has no interest in the Scroll of Seals at all? Such trust in the third Hokage. If you don't trust me, Naruto. Mizuki tried to wrench free, but Naruto held on tightly, not letting go. Let go, Naruto. He finally lost his composure, his earlier gentle demeanor giving way to a vicious scowl, and he shouted harshly. Naruto stood up, dragging Mizuki towards the Hokage building. Mizuki-sensei, just come with me to see the third Hokage. I want to know. Mizuki gritted his teeth and kicked. He couldn't stand it any longer, even if it was at the entrance of the Ninja Academy. Beating a student was certainly not something a teacher should do. But if it's Uzumaki Naruto, no one would stop him. Naruto anticipated his move. He raised his other hand, catching Mizuki's foot, and pressed it down. With a bang, white smoke billowed. A kunai was thrust forward, and Naruto instinctively let go. When he threw another punch, the figure in the smoke had disappeared, hitting only a log. A substitution jutsu. Where did he go? The chakra aura moved to the tree. Naruto looked up. Mizuki stood on a branch, leaning against the trunk. His features twisted with hatred as he looked at Naruto like he was trash. You monster! Since you are so disobedient, don't blame me for teaching you a lesson. He cursed, throwing shurikens and kunai. Naruto raised his hand and chanted an incantation. Hato number 1. Show. Thrust. This was the only Kido he knew. It wasn't very lethal, but the burst of air disrupted the trajectory of the cold iron weapons, which brushed past him and fell weakly to the ground. Mizuki was shocked. What technique was that? A wind-release jutsu without hand seals? Never heard of it. At that moment, Naruto crouched, then leapt up, crashing into Mizuki. Leaves rustled down like rain. Two people were fighting, causing a huge commotion. The crowd's attention was drawn. What's going on over there? That monster is fighting with the teacher. He bullied an ordinary person some time ago. He must have done something even the teacher couldn't stand. It's a disgrace for someone like him to become a ninja. What is the Hokage thinking? That's Mizuki-sensei. Several teachers also noticed, but none had any intention of intervening. A child who had just graduated from ninja school couldn't possibly be a match for an experienced chunin. More importantly, in their eyes it was like a dogfight. Naruto didn't need to be mentioned. Mizuki. He appeared to be a kind and gentle teacher in front of students and parents, speaking softly and tenderly. But all the teachers knew Mizuki's record was far from honorable. He had been suspected of harming his teammates during missions and had been under investigation for a long time. A venomous snake disguised as harmless. They very much hoped Mizuki would accidentally kill Naruto. That would solve two problems at once. The fight continued. Naruto and Mizuki were chasing each other in the trees. I admit you've been impressive lately, Mizuki sneered, smiling cruelly, but kids shouldn't defy adults. Remember today's lesson. He swung his fist, mercilessly. Naruto dodged. The physical difference between an adult and a 12-year-old child made it hard for him to cope. Even so, he didn't give up close combat. Ninjutsu and ninja tools were not his strong suit. Only in close combat could he try to seize an opportunity. Mizuki reached behind him, preparing to pull out a kunai, intending to make the annoying kid who ruined his plans bleed. Naruto's eyes lit up. An opportunity. He had found it. He extended his hand, chanting an incantation. Mizuki frowned. That strange technique without hand signs again? Recalling its previous performance. The air blast, even deflecting a kunai's trajectory, was somewhat difficult. It was child's play. He could withstand it. It wouldn't cause any harm. He concluded this in his mind. He didn't defend, continuing his current action. But Naruto wasn't using the destructive Heido technique he had before, but a binding technique aimed at restraint. Bakudo number 1. Sai. Restrain. Chakra infused with spiritual power silently and invisibly hit Mizuki. His arms twisted uncontrollably. His wrists stuck together tightly behind his back. Mizuki was astonished. What kind of technique is this? It can control my body? My arms are bound. Damn, I can't use ninjutsu. He struggled hard. But the adhesive strength between his hands was immense, and the position of his arms made it hard to exert full force. He couldn't break free for the moment. Naruto kicked him. Mizuki stumbled and fell from the tree. The crowd gasped. What did they just see? Mizuki-sensei was defeated? Even if he wasn't a professional combatant, he was still a seasoned chunin, beaten by a newly graduated genin. And by the one who was considered the dead last just a week ago. Wasn't it a bit too unbelievable? Uchiha Sasuke clenched his fists and widened his eyes. He thought the gap between him and Naruto wasn't that big. But that guy had already become strong enough to defeat a chunin? Mizuki was still struggling. He realized brute force wouldn't work. It might be a genjutsu requiring a chakra surge to break. But before he could try, Naruto landed lightly, standing in front of Mizuki, holding a kunai. Mizuki-sensei, you shouldn't refuse a student's invitation. Before finishing his sentence, he suddenly looked up. A massive chakra appeared above, in the trees, where the fight had just taken place. It was much stronger than Mizuki's or Irika's. It was a jonin. With a whoosh, Naruto jumped away and looked up. It was a ninja wearing a frog mask. Uzumaki Naruto. Stop immediately, he spoke, his voice seemingly disguised. He didn't have much malice. Even if Naruto didn't dodge, the kunai would only land between them. Naruto frowned. A strange jonin with a mask. Was it A Konoha ninja sent to monitor him, the Ninetales? Before the Jonin could say more, Naruto pointed at Mizuki and complained, "I want to see the third Hokage." Mizuki called me a demon fox and used it as an excuse to trick me into stealing the Scroll of Seals. Demon fox? Scroll of Seals? The eyelids of the Umbu, hidden under the mask, couldn't help but twitch. He looked at Mizuki with a dangerous gaze. This man caused such trouble? I should have known better than to stop him. He jumped down from the tree, grabbed Mizuki, and bound him with ropes. I understand. Then come with me to see Hokage-sama. They had not left for long. Irika pushed through the crowd, hurrying out, followed by a short-haired girl with pure white eyes and a faint presence. Where's Naruto? He turned his head, scanning the surroundings anxiously. Earlier, he was handling graduation matters at the school. Hyuga Hinata had rushed in, saying Naruto and Mizuki-sensei were fighting. But where were they? Both Naruto and Mizuki were nowhere to be seen. Hinata, the eldest daughter of the Hyuga clan, was usually obedient and cute, not the type to lie. They were taken by the Umbu, a nearby teacher explained, as Irika had a friendly relationship with others. Irika was speechless, his face showing surprise. Umbu? The teacher nodded. Mizuki was just injured by Uzumaki Naruto, and the Umbu appeared right after. They said something and then took Naruto and Mizuki away. It looks like they were heading to see Hokage-sama. Irika leaned back. Hokage-sama? Did this situation escalate to such an extent? The light in his eyes dimmed. He thought of some rumors about the Umbu. He thought of those terrifying interrogation methods. Finger breaking, grill burning, board dragging. He gritted his teeth and also set off towards the Hokage building. No matter what, Naruto was still just a child. His recent performance had been excellent. Whether in academics or life, everything was improving. Shouldn't Hokage building? Sarutobi Hiruzen had a grave expression, looking at Mizuki tightly bound by the Umbu, puffing heavily on his pipe. He knew he couldn't hide the truth from Naruto forever, but to let him learn this news at this point in time, it was like igniting an explosive tag with that bit of chakra. Fortunately, Naruto brought this man over. By comparison, this man's goal of the Scroll of Seals was insignificant. Haru, Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at Naruto, meeting his gaze and waved his hand. The Umbu with the frog mask stood straight. Take him away, interrogate him, find out everything. The frog-masked Umbu grabbed Mizuki and disappeared instantly. Naruto, you did very well. Sarutobi Hiruzen forced a smile to praise him. Naruto was expressionless. He said, I am the nine-tailed fox. That's why the village hates me. Is that true? Sarutobi Hiruzen softened his voice as much as possible. I said before, they might have some prejudices. So it's true? I am the nine-tailed fox? Naruto interrupted him without hesitation. Sarutobi Hiruzen was taken aback. He didn't want to lie, or rather, didn't dare to lie. The consequences of a lie being uncovered later were far worse than those of concealing the truth. If deceived by lies, what would a rampaging Jinchuriki do when he discovered the truth years later? He couldn't imagine. Moreover, this was the child of Minato. No, you are not the Ninetales. Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head gently, picking out the truth he could tell. It's just that you have some connection with it. It is sealed within you. Ordinary people don't understand these things well and have some prejudices, so they mistakenly think you are the Ninetales. In reality, you are a hero bearing a heavy burden. Naruto said, Is the Ninetales the name of that demon fox? Sarutobi Hiruzen was about to nod. But why did the fourth Hokage seal the Ninetales within me? Naruto continued with another question. The Ninetales rampaged 12 years ago. I was just a baby then. Why not kill the Ninetales? Or seal it within someone else? Sarutobi Hiruzen had a headache. He began to miss the previous ignorant Naruto. Although he played pranks a lot, at least he didn't ask these difficult questions. This has to do with your constitution. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought for a moment and chose a good angle. Your surname is Uzumaki. You possess the strong constitution of the Uzumaki clan. Others cannot become the container for the nine tails. Only you can bear this special, arduous, and honorable duty. Are my parents from the Uzumaki clan? Naruto pursued further. Are both of them? Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded. Your mother was from the Uzumaki clan. Then shouldn't I have my father's surname? Naruto interrupted again. Why do I have my mother's surname? What about my father? Sarutobi Hiruzen took a deep breath, raising his hand to touch Naruto's head. How should he answer? Tell the truth. Tell Naruto your surname should actually be Namikaze? That wasn't an appropriate answer. Naruto stared at Sarutobi Hiruzen. He could clearly feel the torment in the old man's heart. The sparkle in his eyes gradually cooled. If he had any doubts about the Nine-Tails words before, now. The claim that I am the son of the fourth Hokage seemed increasingly close to the truth. Sorry, Naruto, I can't tell you yet. Hiruzen sighed, taking a few puffs from his pipe and exhaling thick white smoke. This is for your protection. Your identity is very special. It must not be known, not even by you. You have talent. Grow up quickly. When you are strong enough, when you can become the towering tree that protects the village, you will know about your father, your mother. They, like you, are heroes of Konoha. Great heroes of Konoha. Naruto remained unmoved. Perhaps, in the past, such words would have filled him with fervor and passion. But now, he could detect the evasion in between the lines. The entire village knows I'm the Nine-Tails, Naruto said expressionlessly, his tone devoid of any fluctuation. And they don't see me as a hero. Hiruzen patted Naruto's head. How could he explain this? Should he say, Konoha is not a monolith? Some people, like himself, wished Naruto could be a normal child, a normal ninja, while others only hoped he would bear the mark of a Jinchuriki. He did not want a still-growing, still immature ninja to form a one-sided and dark impression of the village. At that moment, the door to the Hokage's office was flung open. Irika burst in, panting. He immediately sensed the heavy atmosphere in the room. Hokage-sama, excuse my intrusion. Without hesitation, Irika dropped to one knee, his voice trembling slightly but filled with resolve. Although today is the graduation exam, the official class division will only happen tomorrow. Naruto is still my student. I earnestly request that Hokage-sama leave Naruto's handling to me. As Naruto's homeroom teacher, if he has caused any trouble, it is due to my inadequate education. I must bear part of the blame. As he spoke, his pace slowed. His eyes showed confusion. The third Hokage's face. Surprisingly, a gentle smile appeared as he spoke. The heavy atmosphere dissipated. What's going on? He can still smile? Naruto looked at Irika in surprise. This teacher, who had always been strict with him, seemed to have misunderstood something. But it was precisely this misunderstanding that made Naruto feel incredulous. Pleading for him, standing up for him, even willing to share responsibility. Konoha, there are people like this for him? Irika, Naruto did not cause trouble this time. The third Hokage smiled, removing the pipe from his mouth. He performed a great deed. Mizuki is not a good person. He was investigated before for harming colleagues. Right? Irika nodded. Yes. Hiruzen continued. This time, Mizuki told Naruto about that incident. He tried to use it to tempt Naruto into stealing the scroll of seals. But Naruto is a good boy. He wasn't tempted and instead captured Mizuki. Irika was astonished. Naruto knew the truth? He wasn't swayed and saw through Mizuki's plot? This doesn't sound like Naruto's usual behavior. Naruto is truly remarkable. Irika sincerely admired. He really has grown a lot lately. He was genuinely happy for his student's progress. Hiruzen nodded in satisfaction. He liked this young man Irika very much. Innocent and sincere, loyal to the village. What a pity his talent is a bit lacking. Becoming a chunin is likely his limit. If only Konoha had more young talents like him. Naruto, look. He smiled gently. There are people in the village like Irika who truly care for and protect you. Do not magnify the filth before your eyes. Do not let those dirty things cloud your heart. As Sarutobi Hiruzen spoke, he walked to a cabinet and started rummaging through it. Where was it? Found it. He pulled out an enormous scroll almost half the size of Naruto. This is the scroll of seals that Mizuki mentioned. Did he tell you it contains the secret of your origin? That was a lie. With a flick of his hand, Sarutobi Hiruzen unfurled the scroll. With a clang, the beginning of the scroll hit the floor and a long strip rolled out, filled with dizzyingly complex jutsu inscriptions. This scroll of seals records a series of dangerous and forbidden jutsus that have appeared in Konoha over many years. They are extremely powerful, but they can easily harm the user if not handled correctly. Only in the right hands can they exert their true power. Naruto, I think there is a jutsu that will suit you very well. Consider it your reward this time. Sarutobi Hiruzen gave another flick. He pulled back the scroll to reveal the first recorded jutsu. Multiple shadow clone technique. Naruto read out the words slowly. Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded with a smile. This is an A-rank jutsu that requires a high amount of chakra. It is too dangerous for most people, but for someone with the Uzumaki clan's bloodline, it is perfect. The village will never forget every hero who has contributed to it. After making sure Naruto had finished reading and memorizing it, Sarutobi Hiruzen rolled up the scroll of seals. Study it well, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. He paused, his tone affectionate and his demeanor kind. Naruto, I've always considered you as my grandson. Go home now. Prepare well. From tomorrow onwards, you will be a true ninja. Naruto wanted to continue the previous conversation, but Sarutobi Hiruzen, claiming he had other things to attend to, and with Irika's firm dragging, took him away. As soon as they left, a voice suddenly emerged from the corner of the wall. Hiruzen, you are really foolish. Won't you reconsider entrusting the Jinchuriki to me? Sarutobi Hiruzen squinted and looked towards the source of the voice. It was a man with half his head bound in bandages. Danzo, I already regret not stopping you from spreading the rumor that Naruto is the Nine-Tails back then, Sarutobi Hiruzen said softly. Give it up. I will never hand Naruto over to you, Danzo retorted coldly. The Jinchuriki is now uncontrollable. Twice he has harmed people, and the reason for his drastic change has not yet been discovered. Maybe the seal is loosening. It should be handed over to me to deal with. Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes sharpened instantly, interrupting with a scolding. Danzo, Naruto's change is a good thing. The reasons for the two incidents are obvious. One is you. The rumors you spread made them ostracize Naruto. Mizuki even used that rumor to incite Naruto. Fortunately, Naruto was not influenced by your petty tricks, which is a great relief to me. Naruto will become an excellent ninja like his father. I will not let you ruin him. Danzo sneered. Hiruzen, do you really think the Jinchuriki resisted Mizuki's temptation? Sarutobi Hiruzen said nothing. Danzo stepped closer, standing beside him. We both do this for Konoha. You've been in the Hokage's position for too long and have become naive. Since that day, the Jinchuriki's mind has become increasingly burdened. After knowing he is the Jinchuriki, he did not show much emotion. Perhaps he already knew his identity long ago, or has even interacted with the Nine-Tails. Pausing, he spoke with increased emphasis and meaning. If the seal loses control, leading to the Nine-Tails escaping again, or if the Jinchuriki loses control, I have ways to train him properly. I have some methods in this regard. Sarutobi Hiruzen bit his pipe, his tone resolute. No more. Danzo, I believe in Naruto. He is a good child. If he truly loses control, I will fight with all my strength, even like Minato, to seal the Nine-Tails again. I am the Hokage. It is my responsibility to ensure everyone in the village lives well. This includes Naruto. He is not just a Jinchuriki. He is also the son of the fourth Hokage and a member of the Uzumaki clan. Danzo squinted, staring at Sarutobi Hiruzen, staring at this peer of his who looked much older than himself. Hiruzen, you will regret this, will I? Sarutobi Hiruzen exhaled a puff of smoke, covering his face completely. I hope I won't see that day. Danzo said nothing more. His face darkened as he withdrew. They always clashed over their differing ideologies. But it was always the same. Hiruzen would always veto his proposals, which he believed were more beneficial for the village. After all, in the village, the power of the Hokage was the greatest. Walking out of the Hokage building, Naruto glanced at the ninja beside him wearing a green vest, feeling a bit complicated. Thank you, Irika-sensei. Don't mention it, Irika replied, giving him a thumbs up. It's because you're truly remarkable, Naruto. Why did you do it, Irika-sensei? Naruto asked. You thought I made a mistake, didn't you? Moreover, Sensei, you know the rumors that I am a demon fox. Irika's expression turned nostalgic. A demon fox? Huh? Do you know, in fact, we are very similar. I am also an orphan. During my time at the Ninja Academy, I always did exaggerated, foolish things to get attention. But I was very miserable then. I couldn't help but cry every night in my empty room. Saying this, he looked down at Naruto. But Naruto, you must have suffered more than I did. I was just ignored. But you had to endure so much abuse. It's my fault for not doing enough before. Despite my own experiences, I didn't take good care of your feelings. Naruto turned away, hiding his slightly reddened eyes. Irika raised his hand, placing it on Naruto's head, his tone becoming passionate. In fact, you're much better than me. I only learned to improve myself after graduating, with the guidance of senpais and the Hokage, and through various experiences. But you're already doing that, Naruto. As your teacher, I'm really outshined by you. Naruto grinned with a chuckle. That's the way to smile, Irika said, giving him a gentle pat. You haven't smiled like that in a while, and you should keep smiling like that. He continued seriously, although they all say that. I think the rumor is unreliable. In my eyes, you're not a demon fox. You're just Naruto Uzumaki Naruto, a brilliant student whom I recognize, who will surely become a great ninja in the future. Just like... At this, Irika paused, turning to gaze at the distant mountain with the 4 Hokage heads carved into it. He resumed, his tone solemn and respectful, as if declaring an inevitable future, a heartfelt promise. Just like the 4th Hokage, a great and outstanding ninja, Naruto followed Irika's gaze, his great and outstanding father on the mountain. He began to feel a bit averse to the words great and outstanding. After eating Ichiraka ramen, invited by Irika-sensei, Naruto returned home. The newly acquired multiple shadow clone technique remained unpracticed for the moment. Scenes from the day replayed in his mind. His view of Sarutobi Hiruzen remained unchanged, although the 3rd Hokage might not be as bad as he thought, and his attitude toward Naruto might not be entirely feigned. Part of his care was genuine, but he was indeed hiding very important information from Naruto. Irika-sensei's behavior was unexpected. So, there are still people in Konoha who truly care about him. This village doesn't seem so bad after all. But he still wanted to return to the Soul Society. Konoha has only one Irika, but the Shino Academy has many. In these days, he still hadn't encountered his long-missed Shinigami colleagues. Tomorrow is the team assignment day. Maybe, after becoming an official ninja with more active areas, there will be a greater chance. For some reason, Naruto felt a vague unease about the relationship between Konoha and the Soul Society. This restlessness prompted him to pick up the sword hanging on the wall. During school, he hadn't carried it, as the academy didn't allow weapons other than kunai and shuriken. He only practiced zanjutsu for a short time every morning after waking up. Since he was uneasy, he decided to use training to dissipate this inner turmoil. This was Naruto's usual way to manage his emotions. But just as he touched the sword, the appearance of the sword suddenly changed. The length remained the same, still a katana, but the blade turned a dark, ominous red. A fluffy, long red ribbon dangled from the end of the hilt. A surge of inexplicable knowledge emerged in his mind. It was an incantation. This sudden change stunned Naruto. A name. He had learned the name of the Nine Tails. Knowing its name, mastering its power. So, it wasn't necessary for the Zanpakuto to tell him its name directly. Knowing it from someone else could also release and use its power? He grasped the hilt. The feeling was completely different from holding the Asachi before. Heartbeats, life, flesh trembling. This sword was an extension of his chakra and soul. Undoubtedly, this was the change of the Zanpakuto's initial release. But isn't the Nine Tails the monster sealed within me? How could it become my Shirkai, my inner power? Naruto sat cross-legged, placing the sword on his lap. During the practice of Blade Zen, he entered that dark underground sewer within his heart. Kid, long time no see. The Nine Tails squinted its eyes, looking at the unusually solemn blonde boy, and greeted him with a surprisingly cheerful tone. It seems you're not in a good state? Since the day it said, "You are the fourth son," Naruto hadn't come back. It eagerly awaited to see how much devastation this news would bring to the young lad. Is your name Nine Tails? Naruto looked up and asked. The Nine Tails wasn't surprised. So, are you still expecting that nonsense? Zanpakuto trick? It grinned menacingly, eyes filled with cruelty. Nine Tails was indeed the name it was called most often. But besides the other eight-tailed beasts, who would think that each tailed beast once had a family member who gave it a proper name? Perhaps the Zanpakuto is real, but the name Nine Tails is not real. The collapse of the boy's spiritual pillar would be a beautiful thing. The Zanpakuto has achieved Shirkai. Naruto stepped forward, examining it. I released your restraints. Feel it for yourself. The Nine Tails was stunned, sensing with its scattered chakra. That weird sword had a completely different appearance now, though that was the smallest change. It was no longer composed solely of Naruto's energy, but also contained a part of its own. Together, they had forged this sword. How fascinating. It praised with a peculiar gleam in its eyes. It's real. I didn't even feel my power being taken away. What's the principle behind this? Naruto clenched his fist, speaking to himself. The Soul Society is not fake. I hate you, Nine Tails. Because of you, so many people have hated me since I was a child. Because of you, my father sacrificed himself for the village. I still don't understand why you were sealed inside me, and I don't understand why you, who were sealed, became my inner strength. He raised his fist high, the mist of confusion in his mind dissipating at that moment. If I don't understand, then so be it. I will make good use of your power. I will find my father, find my mother, and then I'll understand everything. The Nine Tails swayed its tail, golden eyes fixed on Naruto. This guy's character is nothing like Minato's, more like that red-haired Spitfire. Is that so? It chuckled. Then let me see how far you can go. Dark red chakra surged. It didn't mind its power being borrowed by Naruto. Haven't all previous Jinchuriki done the same? Compared to them, Naruto was even more interesting. A new world, a hero abandoned by the village. The Nine Tails was already looking forward to how the chaotic future would unfold. Naruto said no more and exited his inner world. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer in the tidy little room he had organized himself. He was in a classroom. In front of him was a familiar teacher. He had returned. He had returned to the Soul Society. The teacher immediately noticed Naruto opening his eyes and the changes in the sword on his lap. Naruto, did you hear your Zanpakuto's name? The teacher didn't hide the surprise in his tone. He had just entered Blade Zen and already heard his Zanpakuto's name, mastering Shirkai. A genius. Is that it? Naruto didn't answer immediately, looking around blankly. After scanning the classroom, he found nothing had changed. No one seemed puzzled by his disappearance or reappearance. His gaze finally rested on the teacher's surprised face. A surprise solely due to the changes in his Zanpakuto. Just like in Konoha, time seemed to have stopped at the moment he left. Why? No time to think about it. Naruto nodded and answered the previous question. Teacher, I think I have learned Shirkai. The students who had not yet entered the state of Blade Zen could not help but look over upon hearing these words. Almost everyone. Blade Zen is not a simple practice. Most Shinigami require years of training to master it. They had only just received their Zanpakuto. Achieving success would not be easy. I have already set high expectations for you, but the reality has surprised me even more, the teacher smiled. What is the name of your sword? Nine Tails, Naruto replied. The teacher turned and instructed the others. You all study by yourselves. I will take Naruto out for a moment. Someone boldly raised their hand. Teacher, we also want to see Naruto's release. Focus on your practice. The teacher sternly denied. This is not a trivial matter. He did not give the students a chance to continue pleading and led Naruto out. They went to the gymnasium. Dean Haku was also called over. Some Shinigami responsible for recording, verifying, and evaluating were also present. The setup did not seem like a simple observation. Naruto, do not be nervous, the teacher reassured him. As I said earlier, mastering the Shirkai is enough for graduation. Dean Haku and other staff are here to verify and record this matter. Just perform normally. Naruto took a deep breath, gripped the sword hilt, and drew it. The dark red blade was deep yet striking. He solemnly recited the incantation from his mind. The nine tails sealed within his body only now felt the change brought by being in a different world as the spiritual power surged. A power completely different from chakra was awakened within him. Even the very essence of his being seemed to no longer be chakra. Naruto's voice echoed in its ears. Rage, pain, fear, corruption. Hear the wailing bloom. Demon Fox Nine Tails. A massive, scarlet, and heavy spiritual pressure radiated from Naruto as its center. The Shinigami in charge of verification took a step back. Is this the Shirkai? What kind of release phrase is that? The intensity of the spiritual pressure was within their expectations. After all, it was spiritual power 5th rank, stronger than many present, and the Shirkai further enhanced the spiritual power. But what was with this sword? It gave them an extremely ominous and dangerous feeling. Even their emotions were slightly affected by the spiritual pressure, planting a seed of weariness and lethargy within them. Naruto's outward appearance did not change much. He was enveloped in a dark red, lava-like transparent spiritual power, with 2 ear-like energy projections standing on his head, and a long, thick tail swaying behind him, resembling a fox. His bright blue eyes turned red, with vertical slit pupils also fox-like. Naruto, does your sword have any special abilities? Dean Haku inquired. Naruto shook his wrist, the blade moving with it. It enhances my body and spiritual power. Beyond that, it seems there is nothing else. Dean Haku nodded. A Zanpakuto that enhances the body? That suited Naruto well. His talent in Kido was far inferior to his talent in Hakuda and Zanjutsu. Naruto felt the power within him. He discovered that what was displayed seemed to be just the tip of the iceberg. Dean Haku, it seems I can become even stronger. Become stronger? Dean Haku did not understand Naruto's meaning. He even found the statement a bit frightening. What did it mean to become stronger? Beyond the Shirkai, that would be the Bankai. Even if one met the captain's spiritual power requirements, learning Bankai would take hundreds of years. Instant mastery? He had just learned Shirkai. Impossible. Naruto took a deep breath, mobilizing the Nine Tails power within his body. The spiritual pressure grew even stronger. A second tail appeared on the spiritual power cloak. The ribbon attached to the Zanpakuto's hilt split and extended into a fluffy second strand. Oh, a second form? Dean Haku breathed a sigh of relief, understanding now. A Shinigami nearby muttered, 9 tails. 9? Could it be, Naruto, that your sword can release up to 9 tails? It was not hard to guess from the name. Naruto nodded. It seems so. Shall I give it a try? Dean Haku hurriedly stopped him. Wait. First, confirm whether your body can handle it. He had lived for many years and had never seen a Zanpakuto that could change forms and enhance power after the Shirkai. but was not a Bankai. Certainly, the abilities of the Zanpakuto are diverse and extraordinary, so it's not surprising to encounter such an anomaly. But he understood. Power often comes with a price. Since the Shurikai originally had only one tail, it proves that the current power is most suitable for Naruto. If he goes further, there may be some cost to pay. Naruto obediently nodded. He checked his body, and after a while, shook his head. There's no discomfort, just a bit hyper with an impulse to fight. Hyper impulse. For battle, this isn't a negative effect. In fact, it could be seen as a positive state. Moreover, in the entire Godai 13, there are quite a few such battle maniacs. They are in a state of extreme hyperactivity and impulsiveness every day. It's not much of a price to pay. Then keep trying, Dean Haku said softly, pleased. Naruto nodded and took a light breath. A third tail swung out. The hilt also split out a third fluffy ribbon. A slight change occurred. The spiritual power cloak covering his body became more intense, no longer as transparent. The spiritual pressure fluctuations grew more intense. The observing Shinigami couldn't help but take another step back. This sword is really powerful, someone remarked. This sense of oppression had only been felt from a few veteran vice captains. A newly enrolled trainee Shinigami with such spiritual pressure. Truly remarkable. How do you feel now? Dean Haku asked again. Naruto felt it out. About the same as before, just more hyper. A buzzing sound was in his ears, like some chaotic, indistinct roars mixed together, urging him to draw his sword and slash at anything around him. His body also had this instinctive impulse, but he could still control it. No physical issues? Dean Haku asked with concern. Naruto shook his head. No burden. Then continued to try. The moment these words were spoken, the fourth tail stretched out. The spiritual power cloak covering Naruto underwent a drastic change, from a semi-transparent dark red to a completely opaque deep red. It was as if the spiritual power had come to life and swallowed Naruto. That sense of ominousness and danger grew stronger. The crowd was horrified, as if they had a thorn in their back. In their sight, Naruto raised his sword and swallowed the Zanpakuto adorned with 4 ribbons. The spiritual pressure became even stronger. Then his stance changed, no longer standing like a human, but crouching, all fours on the ground, like a beast. His eyes showed no pupils, only 2 bright circles of white light. Dean Haku felt a jolt in his heart, a bad premonition. Naruto, he tentatively called. But what greeted him was a roar from the spiritual power monster that had swallowed Naruto. Immediately, there was a sound of an air explosion, and it disappeared from its original spot. Careful, he's lost control, Dean Haku loudly warned. He thought of the emotions that had affected him at the beginning. He recalled Naruto's mention of impulse, indeed just as he initially anticipated. This sword's liberation of its tails comes with a cost. However, the cost is not spiritual power or the body, but rationality. As soon as the words fell, the tailed Naruto had already pounced in front of a Shinigami, his claws swiping, stirring up a fierce wind. Boom! Although that Shinigami abandoned chanting at the critical moment and used Bakudo number 8. Seiki, repulse, gathering spiritual power into a cluster to withstand most of the damage. Even the aftermath sent him flying, embedding him firmly into the wall. Naruto's speed is that fast? A Shinigami exclaimed. Such strength? He remembered Naruto's Shuinpa wasn't at that level. The Shinigami in the wall was in a sorry state, bleeding from the head. It seems that sword strengthens him in all aspects, not just spiritual pressure, but also strength, speed, and more. Dean Haku frowned. First, we need to control him. Be careful not to hurt him too badly. Did you call for backup? Dean Haku shouted with delight. The Shinigami who had first been slammed into the wall responded. I already did. Looking at Naruto standing in the center of the gymnasium, Dean Haku's expression was complicated, and he had to admit that he had spoken a bit too loudly earlier. What nonsense, like, don't let him get too badly injured. Bah, that was just thoughtless drivel. Facing someone of this terror level, it was already chaotic enough for them to just protect themselves. It's not that Naruto's current strength far surpassed the combined efforts of several high-ranking lieutenants. It's just, his combat logic was completely different from any creature they had encountered before, whether Shinigami or Hollow. After his first attack, rampaging Naruto abandoned his high mobility advantage and rooted himself in place. This was very unwise, turning him into a target. Yet this did not give Dean Haku and the others an advantage. That sword brought significant enhancement. The red spiritual power cloak was not just for show. It had extremely strong defensive power. Any Hado below number 10 couldn't break through that red cloak. Even Hado below number 30, without incantation, could only create a few cracks. Only high-level Kido with complete incantation could cause minimal damage. This was the result Dean Haku initially hoped for. But, with his extreme healing speed, those minor skin and flesh wounds healed in an instant, as if they had never appeared. Moreover, even while standing still, Naruto possessed formidable attack capabilities. He inserted his hand into the ground. The entire gymnasium seemed to become his territory. Red hands, formed from condensed spiritual power, could rise from any unexpected area to launch attacks. The lava-like spiritual power was not just for appearance. It truly possessed the properties of lava, with extremely strong burning and corrosive effects. Upon discovering this property, Dean Haku and the others tried to dodge as much as possible to avoid severe injury. The gymnasium was in ruins. Those few pits, these skylights. Principal, I can't take it anymore. A Shinigami drew his sword, his tone heavy. If this continues, it might endanger the other students. He was ready to release his Zanpakuto. Without release, it would be very difficult to suppress Naruto in this state. The backup is too slow, another Shinigami complained. It had already been almost 5 or 6 minutes. Dean Haku was about to respond when a voice, calm in tone but flippant in content, came from the skylight. Ah, this is so annoying. When will the 10th Division pick a captain? I still have to handle this. Dean Haku looked up sharply, delight in his eyes. Captain Hirako. The speaker was a man with long golden hair, wearing the captain's haori, with a tie under his kimono, slouching and looking both contemptuous and restless. Behind him followed a man with plain black-rimmed glasses and unassuming brown hair, looking harmless. Vice Captain Aizen. Shinji Hirako clicked his tongue. It's been wrecked like this, huh? That rampaging student is the fox monster? The spiritual pressure is really scary. He raised his hand. Inside the gymnasium, rampaging Naruto also noticed the threat from above. His biological instincts told him. Both the blonde man and the brown-haired man beside him were extremely dangerous. Swoosh, swoosh. 2 lava-like red tails shot up. Captain, watch out! Sosuke Aizen rushed out urgently, abandoning the incantation. Bakudo number 39. And Kozen, round lock fan, a swiftly rotating yellow spiritual power shield unfolded in his palm. Crash, the tail hand struck, the massive impact shattering it. The fragments tainted by the red spiritual power emitted a sizzling corrosive hum. The spiritual power was being burned away. Sosuke Aizen stared thoughtfully. This was quite an interesting ability. The tailed beast's hand continued its rapid advance. Shinji Hirako sneered, Sosuke, this is an opponent of similar level to you. Take it seriously. Don't disgrace the 5th Division. He drew his sword, flashed in an instant, and slashed at the hands. The spiritual power was disrupted. Captain Hirako, be careful. Naruto's spiritual power is corrosive, Dean Haku quickly reminded. Shinji Hirako impatiently said, Do you think I'm blind? I noticed it a long time ago. His spiritual pressure can't damage my sword. As he spoke, Sosuke Aizen raised his right hand and chanted an incantation. Hado number 33. Sokatsui, blue fire, crashed down. A faint, light blue spherical lightning bolt sped towards Naruto. Boom! An explosion ensued, rolling out clouds of fine smoke. The outer layer of the tailed beast cloak cracked. A small part shattered, injuring the flesh and blood beneath, rendering it a bloody mess. But both the wound and the outer layer of the red spiritual power cloak began to heal rapidly, visible to the naked eye. Strong defense, Sosuke Aizen concluded, and strong regenerative abilities. This kind of ability is too similar to a hollow. His eyes showed amazement. The minor injury made the berserk Naruto even more frenzied. Her tails waved chaotically, rising from the ground, dancing wildly. Don't say something that even an idiot could see. Shinji Hirako raised his hand. He abandoned the incantation. Bakudo number 62. Hyaparankin, 100 steps fence. Spiritual power congealed into pale purple crystalline rods. Like rain, they rained down on Naruto, pinning his 4 massive tails and his limbs to the ground. They were, of course, corroded, emitting wisps of white smoke. But at this speed, it would take a long time to dissolve the seal. Not that hard to deal with, Shinji Hirako grinned mockingly. I thought it was a bigger problem and specially applied to the Central 46 to release the Zanpakuto, cut off his spiritual power. Without spiritual power, this state should... He didn't finish his sentence. Gurgling, that layer of spiritual power cloak started to boil, spiritual power floating and surging. Naruto, whose limbs and tails were sealed, lifted his head and opened his mouth to an eerie, enormous size. Spiritual power continuously surged out of his body, gathering in front of his mouth, forming a core and absorbing nearby spiritual power, transforming into a massive black orb. It had immense spiritual pressure and a strange spiritual power fluctuation. That is, Dean Haku's eyes widened in disbelief, exclaiming, "Zero?" Sosuke Aizen pushed up his glasses. Highly concentrated spiritual power, spherical, black in color, all very much aligned with the standard of a zero. This was an ability only Minos Grande could use, not on the list of Shinigami skills. Interesting, Shinji Hirako grinned, but this isn't a zero. Have your brains been pickled? Can't distinguish this spiritual pressure? But this level of fearfulness. Good thing I applied. He raised his sword and let go of his hand. The sword didn't fall. It floated in front of him. Collapse. Sakanade. The Zanpakuto-S form changed, the hilt expanding into a circular ring. With a clang, the sword started spinning. A peculiar fragrance wafted, instantly filling the noses of everyone in the gymnasium. The world turned upside down. In that instant, the tailed beast bomb was fired, but the target was wildly off, shooting high into the sky. Moments later, it exploded with a roar. Spiritual power swept, airwaves rolled. The already ravaged gymnasium couldn't withstand this fierce wind and finally collapsed. Shinji Hirako raised his hand, seizing the moment. Bakudo number 4. Hainawa, crawling rope. Golden spiritual power ropes flew from his palm, binding Naruto's fox head tightly. Sosuke Aizen was about to descend. Shinji Hirako stepped ahead, sealing Naruto's, Hakusui, and Seketsu, the 2 vital points within a soul's body that maintains spiritual power flow. Damaging them wouldn't endanger the soul's life but would strip away all spiritual power. Similarly, sealing them would stop the flow of spiritual power. Without the support of spiritual power, the red cloak gradually receded, revealing the appearance of the host, a blond boy. The exhaustion of physical strength, spiritual power, and sanity made the still young Naruto fall into a deep sleep. Captain Hirako, how should we handle him? Sosuke Aizen asked with a smile. Dean Haku immediately spoke up. I had him attempt Shirkai. Shinji Hirako glanced at the two, picked up Naruto, and mockingly retorted, "Are you out of your mind? Of course, send him to the 4th division. Such immense spiritual power, the nature of that spiritual power, who knows what damage it has done to his body." He grinned sarcastically. Do you want to send him to the 2nd division? Dean Haku nodded. Of course, we're heading to 4th division. Captain Hirako, let's go together. My colleagues and I are injured. Each squad in the Godii 13 has its own responsibilities. The 4th division is responsible for medical treatment. 2nd squad handles prison interrogations, which is not a pleasant place to go. Sosuke, take this kid's sword, Shinji Hirako said, grabbing Naruto by the back of his collar like a fox cub. Sosuke Aizen, unbothered by the unceremonious command from his captain, walked over. He paused when he saw something half buried under the rubble. He turned his head. Excuse me, Dean Haku. Which one of you was disarmed by Uzumaki Naruto? Dean Haku shook his head. No one. Why do you ask? Lieutenant Aizen. Sosuke Aizen bent down and picked up the objects from the ground. There are 2 swords here. One was dark red and the other was a basic training sword. He reached out his left hand, grabbing the dark red one. Is this his sword? It's beautiful. And this one? He shook the one in his right hand. Isn't this one of yours? Dean Haku tilted his head. The least injured Shinigami responded. I'll investigate right away to see if any trainee's sword is missing. Dean Haku nodded, walked over, and took the training sword. He also picked up the 9-tailed demon fox sword. Lieutenant Aizen, I'll take care of the swords. Since we're all heading to 4th Division, I'll keep them for now. Sosuke Aizen smiled and nodded. Thank you. Dean Haku, the 4th Division barracks were in a more remote and quiet part of Siriidii. Naruto's condition seemed somewhat unusual. Initially, it was Lieutenant Yamada Shinasuke who was in charge, but he soon called for the 4th Division Captain, Unohana Retsu. Outside the treatment room, more people gradually arrived. Shinigami from the Shino Academy came and went, reporting the results of their investigation on the missing training sword. 8th Division Captain Kairaku Shunsui, a man dressed in a cherry blossom pink haori and wearing a straw hat, looked even more carefree than Shinji Hirako. 1st Division Lieutenant Sasuke Chojiro, a white-haired man with a mustache, dressed in the most formal Shinigami attire. Is the treatment still ongoing? Kairaku Shunsui asked softly, his eyes resting on the sword in Dean Haku's hand. Does that sword put such a burden on its wielder? Shinji Hirako shook his head. It's not treatment. Captain Unohana said there's something unusual about that kid's body, and she's still investigating. Kairaku Shunsui was puzzled. Unusual? Shinji Hirako clicked his tongue. How should I know? I'm terrible at Kido. As they spoke, the door opened. Yamada Shinasuke came out, respectfully facing the captains. Please, captains, come in. Captain Unohana has some things to say. They stepped inside. Just as Sosuke Aizen was about to follow, Shinji Hirako stopped him. Sosuke, you stay outside. We don't want anyone unauthorized entering. Sosuke Aizen stopped, not the least bit upset. His face still wearing a gentle smile. Yes, Captain Hirako. He had no complaints about the fact that the other 2 lieutenants could go in while he couldn't. At least not outwardly. Everyone entered. With a bang, Shinji Hirako shut the door heavily. Sosuke Aizen smiled, the light reflecting off his glasses obscuring his eyes. Inside the room, Naruto had already woken up. He lay on the bed, head lowered, looking dejected. Lieutenant Sasuke is here too? Unohana was surprised by his presence. Captain Commander Yamamoto is also concerned about this matter. Sasuke Chojiro replied frankly. Unohana nodded. Dean Haku, the most impatient among them and closest to Naruto, was also the most concerned. What condition does Naruto's body have that requires Captain Unohana to investigate for so long? Will his release affect his body? Unohana shook her head gently, her tone soft. Uzumaki's body is undamaged, just a bit unusual. She paused, her gaze falling on Naruto's abdomen. Although Uzumaki has told me a lot, but to make it easier to understand, I'll explain from my perspective. His body feels an extremely powerful spiritual pressure, far greater than that of an ordinary captain, at least of second-class spiritual pressure level. Second-class spiritual pressure? And at least, is it a hollow? Shinji Hirako recalled his initial impression of Naruto and his hollow-like techniques, speaking up immediately. Unohana shook her head again. It's not a hollow. Shinasuke and I have discussed Captain Hirako's and Dean Haku's impressions, although I haven't seen it myself, but that feeling is likely just an emotional influence. As she spoke, She remained calm and composed, her gaze briefly passing over her sword. The power within the vortex is not insubstantial, nor is it as evil as he describes. On the contrary, it is very pure, very... She hesitated, pondering the most precise description. A very life-affirming force, very suitable for healing arts. Even without performing spells, this spiritual power itself has a healing effect. He seemed to have some misunderstandings about it. Dean Haku was relieved and exhaled deeply. That's great. The person is fine and the power is not a problem either. Shinji Hirako raised his eyebrow and looked back at the door. Is that thing? Shunsui Kairaku furrowed his brows and spoke seriously, like Jushiro? He didn't make it too clear, but those who should understand could grasp his meaning. The Jushiro he referred to was his friend and fellow captain, the current captain of the 13th Division, Yukatake Jushiro. He is the least healthy among all the captains, being chronically ill. He almost died when he was young and was only saved by being parasitized by a fragment of the Soul King. No, it's not. Unohana, one of the oldest Shinigami, understood and shook her head in denial. Although their nature of existence is somewhat similar, they are different. The entity within the vortex is merely a being constructed purely of spiritual power. Dean Haku frowned. It sounds like a good thing, but why does Naruto lose his sanity when it's released? Because the sword hasn't fully accepted him yet, Unohana said softly. Dean Haku didn't understand and held up the two swords in his arms. But Naruto already knows its name, doesn't he? This rarely happens, Unohana said gently. The few cases are usually during Bankai. It's unprecedented to happen at Shirkai. The name can also be wrong. When a Shinigami can hear the voice of their Zanpakuto, if the Zanpakuto doesn't recognize the person or their power, it might not tell the user its real name. This way, although it can be released, only part of the Zanpakuto's power or the wrong power can be used. Naruto's case is probably like this. His spiritual pressure is strong enough to wield the Zanpakuto, but for some reason, the Zanpakuto told him a wrong name. It could also be that the sword is too powerful, and even with 5th rank spiritual power, it's not enough to fully utilize it. Naruto listened intently. Many of these details were not mentioned to him by Captain Unohana earlier. 9 Tails. Is it the wrong name? The wrong name. Dean Haku looked bitter. Unohana continued. I think it might be related to another strange matter about the vortex. The power within him is both complete and incomplete. Even Shunsui Kairaku was puzzled by this. What does it mean? Complete yet incomplete. Such a contradiction? This power should have another matching half, Unohana said softly. Like a pair of objects missing its other half. Matching the other half. Dean Haku thought of something, glanced at Shunsui Kairaku, and raised the sword in his hand. Captain Unohana, the investigation has just been completed, and no one is missing an Asachi. This sword appeared beside Naruto along with 9 Tails. Could it be? Naruto actually possesses a pair of Zanpakuto, the 3rd one in the Soul Society. He has only awakened 9 Tails, and the other one has yet to awaken. Most Shinigami have only a single sword, but there are exceptions. Captain of the 8th Division, Shunsui Kairaku, and Captain of the 13th Division, Yukatake Jushiro. These fellow captains are very rare dual sword holders. Unohana nodded hesitantly. For now, that seems to be the explanation. She looked at the disappointed blonde boy on the bed. Vaguely, she felt something was off but couldn't pinpoint it. Dual swords was the best and only explanation. For some very special reason, Naruto has only released one of the dual swords, and the other remains sealed or hasn't been released for some other reason. What does Captain Kairaku think? Shunsui Kairaku shook his head. Both Jushiro and I released our dual swords simultaneously, and there are no other examples to refer to. I see, Unohana smiled. Naruto will stay in the 4th Division for the time being. I'll monitor his physical condition closely. Saying this, she picked up a piece of paper from the bedside table, folded it, and handed it to Lieutenant Chojiro Sasakaibe. Please hand this to the Captain Commander. It records the seal on Naruto's body. It's a very peculiar spell, unlike any spells we've seen before. According to Naruto, it seems to be a form of spiritual power manipulation by humans in the living world, not of the Quincy type. She emphasized the word, any. Chojiro Sasuke left. He had already received the answer the Captain Commander wanted. Don't blame yourself. Dean Haku walked to Naruto's bedside, placing 2 swords down and gently comforting. And don't resist this power. Although it's a bit unexpected, you did give us quite a beating. However, I'm just a minor lieutenant. The captains are much stronger than me, and they will surely resolve the major issues with your body. Naruto lifted his head. Their eyes met. Dean Haku was stunned. In those azure eyes, there was no retreat, fear, or terror as he imagined. The expression was firm and determined. And there was apology to himself and those teachers. He was much stronger than he thought. I am not resisting, it's just... Naruto clenched his fists. I wish I could be a bit better. You kid. Dean Haku chuckled, ruffling Naruto's hair playfully. Unohana Retsu and Kairaka Shunsui were also surprised by his response. It didn't sound like something a young man, who was not even 20 in total before and after death, would say. It was a good answer. Mature, strong, reliable. They had enough patience and time to accompany a talented but immature young man in his growth. However, if he could mature earlier, it would obviously be better. This is what being a man is all about, Shinji Hirako said. Though his words were fine, they sounded slightly off in his mouth. I thought you would bury your face in Dean Haku's chest and cry. Naruto glanced at him, looking somewhat disdainful, then turned to Unohana Retsu. Captain Unohana, what should I do to control the power of the Nine Tails without losing control? You need to continue your Zanpakuto training and see the soul of your Zanpakuto. Unohana Retsu smiled warmly. Don't rush, you're still young. We can solve this problem slowly. Naruto's tone was calm as he replied. I have already done that. Unohana Retsu was surprised. I have already seen it. Naruto pointed to his heart. During my first Zanpakuto training, how many did you see? Kairaku Shunsui asked. Naruto looked at him. Puzzled, of course, just one. Kairaku Shunsui mused. For those of us who use dual swords, it's different from those who use single swords. The number of Zanpakuto spirits, like the swords, is 2. You can see it in the names. Like my Kaiten Kayakatsu and Jushiro Sojio no Kotawari. The Nine Tails might not be a false name, but perhaps incomplete, as Captain Unohana said, lacking half. 2? Naruto tilted his head. But in that underground sewer, there was only the Nine Tails fox. I think the reason you can only release one sword might be because the one you have released is too powerful, Kairaka Shunsui continued. He raised both hands, spiritual power gathering. In both hands, a ball of light appeared, identical in size and strength. For Jushiro and me, the strength of the 2 swords is equal, allowing them to shine equally. Just now, Captain Unohana said the power sealed inside you has at least the strength of a second-class spiritual pressure. And you, Uzumaki, have only 4th or 5th rank spiritual pressure. That is like this. The ball of light in Kairaku's left hand grew large, emitting a scorching, dazzling light, while the right-hand ball remained unchanged, seemingly swallowed by the left-hand light, making it indistinguishable without effort. What do you see? Naruto, not foolish but very intelligent, replied. The light of the Nine Tails is too strong, overshadowing the other Zanpakuto's light, causing me to ignore it? Exactly. Kairaka Shunsui waved his hand, dispersing the spiritual power. So, Uzumaki, what you need to do now is continue your Zanpakuto training and find your other sword. This might balance the Nine Tails power or complete its name. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. To find another inner power. We will also figure out the strange curse mark on you as soon as possible. Unohana smiled. Don't worry too much. Naruto looked at them, then at Dean Haku. He let out a long breath, releasing the depression in his heart. Indeed, the Soul Society was more comfortable. He stayed in the 4th division for half a month, and after Unohana Retsu confirmed that his emotions wouldn't affect his future, He was sent back to the Shino Academy. Naruto wanted to help Unohana Retsu solve the curse mark issue, but he knew nothing about sealing techniques. In the textbook of the Ninja Academy, only the most basic knowledge is included. Sealing techniques, that area is a blind spot. Returning to school, the process for early graduation has also begun. Naruto needs to complete the entire 6-year curriculum in less than a year. In addition to the basic 4 subjects of swordsmanship, zanjutsu, hand-to-hand combat, hakuda, shuinpa hoho, there are also some lessons related to Shinigami duties, such as secret maneuvers, rescue and medical aid, intelligence patrol, combat purification. These are the most troublesome courses for students who are graduating early. But for Naruto, these courses didn't pose too much trouble. Many of them were similar to the content learned at the Ninja Academy. Of course, Naruto has more to learn than just these. Captain Unohana was specifically instructed to add Healing Arts course for Naruto. Usually, the Shino Academy only teaches basic healing arts. Only after confirming the aptitude and being assigned to the 4th division after graduation would one formally begin studying it. Naruto wanted to refuse, but whenever he tried to say it, he felt a spine-chilling sense of danger. Captain Unohana was obviously so gentle, so beautiful. Naruto also successfully learned the multiple shadow clone technique obtained in Konoha. Although he didn't like Sarutobi Hiruzen much anymore, he had to admit that his judgment was very good, as this technique suited him well. Everything was getting better, except for the other sword, which wasn't progressing much. Every time he practiced Blade Zen, he could only hear the voice of the Nine Tails. Naruto even tried asking the Nine Tails if it was hiding its true name, but whenever this question came up, the Nine Tails would become uncontrollably angry and chase him out. After several attempts, the Nine Tails finally calmed down and spoke to Naruto. Nine Tails is indeed not its real name, but it refused to tell Naruto. Half a year passed like this. The Shinigami Naruto saw the most was the vice-captain of the 5th division, Sosuke Aizen. He was a very gentle person, coming over almost weekly to guide Naruto in his Kido practice, greatly improving Naruto's skills in this area. However, their meetings were not long. Each time Sosuke Aizen came, shortly after, Captain Shinji Hirako would follow, although Sosuke Aizen was very gentle. For some reason, Naruto preferred Shinji Hirako, who always cursed and acted weirdly. Next was Captain Unohana of the 4th Division, who took good care of Naruto. One day, Naruto was still training alone in the gym. Dean Haku came to find him. "Naruto, a captain is looking for you. Come with me." Naruto stopped training, puzzled. Captain? If it were Unohana Retsu or Kairaku Shunsui, Dean Haku wouldn't specifically use the term captain. It's the new captain of the 12th Division, Urahara Kisuk, Dean Haku said. He seems to have researched something. It's said that he's very capable, and he has good relations with the Shihoin clan. He might be able to solve your problem. They walked to the office. After knocking and pushing the door open. "Yo, Uzumaki boy, I've heard a lot about you, but this is the first time we've met." The voice came first. Naruto looked over. It was a man with short pale yellow hair, draped in a captain's haori. Unlike the captains he had seen before, though those had their own unique characteristics, they undoubtedly had the presence of a captain, but this one had a weak-looking face, giving a feeling of being frail and easily bullied. There was not just one captain in the room. Also present was a dark-skinned beauty sitting cross-legged on the table, yawning. The pale yellow-haired man walked over. "Let me introduce myself. I am Urahara Kisuk, captain of the 12th Division and head of the Technological Development Bureau. And this, well..." He spoke with some disdain. "You might as well pretend she doesn't exist. Urahara, you jerk." The dark-skinned beauty jumped over and punched him hard. "Introduce me properly." Urahara Kisuk held his head. "This is Shihoin Yoruchi, captain of the 2nd Division. She's very interested in your fox's condition. Besides, we'll need her help for some upcoming matters." As he spoke, he paused, as if the next words involved his most confident field. and his demeanor became more imposing. I have some clues about your seal and trouble, but it's not convenient to discuss it here. If you don't mind, could you come with us? The Technological Development Bureau is a new department. It was established only after Urahara Kisuke took office. There are people here who are even more eccentric than Shinji Hirako. People with horns growing out of their heads, wearing strange golden masks and dancing around. These are considered normal. They barely resemble humans. Naruto even saw a green catfish sitting in front of a computer operating it. Their attitude towards Urahara Kisuke is very strange. There is no respect typically shown by subordinates to their captain. They are busy with their own tasks. Urahara Kisuke didn't bother greeting these people either and led Naruto and Shihoin Yaruchi to the deepest level of the Technological Development Bureau. A vast, empty, desolate place. Naruto was somewhat surprised. There was such a large underground space, even with a sky. It felt like another world. He was also puzzled. Why bring him here? This place looked more like a training ground. If it was for a body checkup, the upper floors with sophisticated instruments would obviously be more suitable. Uzumaki, let me introduce this place to you. Urahara Kisuke spread his arms, his tone proud. This is the first achievement I made after establishing the Technological Development Bureau. Here, we can evade any monitoring from Siriidii, including the restrictions from Central 46 on us captains. Even a Bankai wouldn't be noticed by outsiders. Naruto frowned. This doesn't sound like it's for research. The seal on you is very intriguing. Urahara Kisuke approached. Whether it's a Shinigami, Hollow, or Quincy, even the powers used by human mediums in the real world are completely different. Urahara Kisuke paused and examined Naruto. He originally didn't plan to interact with Naruto. He saw Unohana Retsu's request for help as just ordinary colleague assistance. But as his research into the seal deepened, and from the information he gathered about Naruto from Shinji Hirako, he couldn't resist the urge to study the mystery within Naruto. This had a unique resemblance to a kind of technology he was currently developing. He continued, that kind of technique's control over spiritual power is general, only a superficial application, but its ingenuity in physical development is extraordinary. The effects it shows are no less than our Shinigami techniques. A very unique perspective and approach, an area we haven't explored before. Unfortunately, I only have the transcripts given to me by Captain Unohana. Naruto lifted his shirt. Do you want to see? I don't mind. No. Urahara Kisuke shook his head quickly. Those external forms are meaningless. I want to understand the operating core. So, fight. Naruto uttered a bewildered, the transition too fast for him to react. Fight. Release your sword and fight. Urahara Kisuke's voice was firm, decisive, and enthusiastic. Until you lose control, I will record all the data to analyze the seal on your spiritual power. Naruto hesitated. Shihoin Yaruchi pressed down on Naruto's head. Kid, losing control means you aren't familiar enough with your power. Use it more and you'll get familiar. Don't worry about hurting us. Even though Kisuke looks like this, he is still a captain. Urahara Kisuke smiled. And here, we are not restricted. Naruto hesitated no longer, nodded, and drew his sword. Then please, Captain Urahara, Captain Shihoin, he chanted the release. The ominous, fierce spiritual power of the Nine Tails surged forth. Soon, four tails appeared, and he lost his rationality, going berserk and mad. When he woke up again, Naruto found himself in a hot spring. Shihoin Yaruchi, naked with a few bruises and scars on her body, greeted him cheerfully when she saw he was awake. Yo, woke up? You sure hit hard. She was very casual about it. Naruto, embarrassed, blushed and averted his gaze. He knew a similar technique to what Yaruchi was displaying now, but doing it himself was one thing, soaking in the same hot spring pool with her was another. A young man had never seen such a scene. Urahara Kisuke was squatting by the hot spring, watching Naruto, his eyes glowing. Your body has almost recovered? Can you release it again later? We collected some interesting data, but it's not comprehensive. Shihoin Yaruchi unhappily splashed a handful of hot water over. Consider me. My stamina can't match this kid's. That day, Naruto lost control and released 4 times. Urahara Kasuke was satisfied and arranged with Naruto to conduct such tests twice a week. As for the compensation, it would be the entire research result on the seal and Shihoin Yaruchi's hand-to-hand combat, Hakuda, classes. As one of the captains, she was the strongest in terms of physical skills, and her guidance greatly benefited Naruto. 2 months later, Urahara Kasuke produced the first results. On top of Naruto's existing seal, he added 2 more incantations. The effects were remarkable. They allowed Naruto to maintain his sanity in his 4-tailed form and even further, only losing control when he reached the 5-tailed state. The 5-tailed form brought a huge surprise to Urahara Kasuke. A white bone mask appeared on the face of the out-of-control Naruto. At first, he thought it was a hollow's mask, but after cutting off some parts with Yaruchi's help, he realized it wasn't. It was purely bone, completely different from the power of a hollow. However, it still provided new ideas for his research. But the power of the incantation seemed limited to this. No matter how many support techniques he added, it was impossible to keep Naruto sane in the 5-tailed form. Urahara Kasuke was anxious. He was eager to see what the 6-tailed, 7-tailed, and even 9-tailed forms looked like. This sword named Nine Tails was stronger than he had imagined. During this period, most of the time it was Shihoin Yaruchi who fought with Naruto, but occasionally, Urahara would join to collect data. Both came to the same conclusion. The 5-tailed Naruto had the level of the top vice captains. If he could reach the 6-tailed form, he might have the combat power of an ordinary captain, roughly equivalent to the level of the newly appointed captain, Miguruma Kensei. By this analogy, the limit of the initial release could potentially place him among the top captains. However, no matter how anxious Urahara was, he understood his limits. Whenever Naruto was on the verge of further losing control and displaying another tail, Urahara would decisively step into seal and cut off the spiritual power flow. Research was conducted on the premise of ensuring Naruto's safety and also ensuring the safety of himself and Yaruchi. Time flew by in training, learning, and research. At the school's training ground, Sosuke Aizen was teaching Naruto higher-level Kido spells above number 50 and suddenly remarked, "It's graduation season again." Naruto was a bit dazed and replied, "Yes, graduation season." He looked into the distance where the cherry blossoms were blooming again. "Have you decided which division you want to join?" Aizen asked again. Naruto shook his head. "Isn't the school responsible for the allocation after registration? That's for regular students." Aizen smiled. "You're different, you're a genius. Even Captain Hirako wants to recruit you." Naruto pondered. 5th division. Huh. But speaking of which, Naruto, are you going to the living world with the 6th-year students for soul burials in a few days? Aizen changed the subject, seemingly not wanting to make Naruto feel pressured or conflicted. Naruto nodded and grinned. "Yes. Dean Haku told me. Soul burial is the ceremony where a Shinigami consoles and sends souls to the Soul Society. It's a skill every Shinigami must master." Naruto was no exception. He was looking forward to the internship in the living world. Perhaps this could solve the mystery of why he inexplicably traveled between Konoha and the Soul Society. The ceremony was simple, and the internship in the living world was more of a symbolic gesture, representing that the students were finally stepping out of the school and becoming independent, formal Shinigamis. "Best of luck," Aizen offered his blessings, "but given that you were personally taught by Captain Urahara and Captain Shihoin, I'm sure you'll be fine." Naruto's smile widened, "And also the teachings of Vice Captain Aizen. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have believed I could learn so many advanced Kido spells. Just call me Aizen, we are friends after all." Aizen's tone was gentle and slow. "I'm just a mere vice captain. How can I compare to the 2 captains? But, Naruto, you've improved much faster recently than before. Did those 2 captains teach you something special?" Naruto scratched his cheek. "Sorry. Aizen, Captain Urahara told me not to tell anyone about that matter." Aizen apologized. "I overstepped. The guidance from the captains is precious. You must cherish it well. The internship will take place in 1 week. There will be no teachers accompanying. A team will be led by the outstanding students from the 6th grade. Siriidii is silent and profound, and the Senkaman, standing in the corner, is even more so. A huge open-air arena-like venue. A straight, wide, turquoise road leads to a large, lacquered red door inscribed with golden characters. This is the portal from the Soul Society to the human world. At the starting point of the road, this batch of intern students gathered. An older male student spoke. This time, going to the human world, there's no need to be nervous. We're heading to a town called Akita, not a high spiritual area. Even if we encounter hollows, they'll just be some newborn, weak ones. The spirits for the Kanso, spirit burial. The station Shinigami have already prepared for us. He continued introducing. Naruto, feeling restless, didn't listen very attentively. Kita? Never heard of it. Doesn't sound like a ninja village, just an ordinary town in the country? He wasn't sure if it was within the Land of Fire. The Land of Fire is the country that rules over Konoha. Other countries, like the Land of Water and the Land of Wind, he had only heard of, not familiar with. While thinking, the upperclassman's speech reached the end. After completing the spirit burial, please return to the arrival point immediately. The giant red door also quietly and gently opened to both sides. A gentle white light burst forth. The upperclassman raised his hand, and a black swallowtail butterfly landed on his index finger. Follow the team closely. In the Dong Ai, without the guidance of the hell butterfly, it's very dangerous. In the human world, under the bright night sky. In the forest, first, a white dot flickered, then expanded in the blink of an eye, unfolding like a 4-pointed star. The ukiyo-e gate appeared in the white light and slowly opened. A group of Shinigami trainees walked out from it. They were chattering. Naruto looked around. The trees were sparse, not enough to cover the sky. This shouldn't be the Land of Fire. The trees around Konoha are tall and lush, but these are scattered, only at the level of saplings. All right, let's begin. The upperclassman clapped his hands lightly. The other trainees scattered to find their spirits. Naruto did not move. The upperclassman asked, Uzumaki-kun, what's wrong? Senpai, which country is this? Naruto asked curiously. He perked up his ears, ready to hear an answer like Land of Wind or Land of Lightning. The upperclassman was puzzled. Why do you want to know? This is Japan. Shinigami generally have little interest in the human world. Even most of the civilian Shinigami from Hokage are usually second-generation spirits. That is, children born from the union of spirits. But considering this famous junior from the Shino Academy is one of the rare types who possessed immense spiritual power upon dying in the human world, it was not surprising he asked such a question. Japan? Naruto was stunned. Is it close to the Land of Fire? This was a country name he had never heard of. The upperclassman blinked. Land of Fire? Sorry, Uzumaki-kun. I've never heard of that country. Naruto widened his eyes. The unease he felt before the internship bloomed at this moment. How can it be? The Land of Fire is the most powerful country. The upperclassman smiled slightly. Most powerful? I'm not very knowledgeable about the human world. But the most powerful country among humans doesn't seem to have that name. Naruto reluctantly nodded. Okay, I understand. Maybe the Land of Fire is just the name of a village, the upperclassman said, gently comforting. You were quite young when you came to the Soul Society. Perhaps you remembered wrong. Naruto gave him a grin. Yes, thank you, senpai. He was the last to leave. He did not immediately go to find the spirit he needed to perform the spirit burial on. The identity of Shinigami brought him many conveniences. Ordinary people without spiritual power could neither see nor sense him, allowing him to move freely among human dwellings, reading books and searching for information. The scenery here was beautiful. Seas of clouds, forests, hot springs. Naruto had no interest in these. He soon found a world map in a large local household. Japan was a small piece on the map. The land was vast compared to others, but none had the name Land of Fire. He also found traces of ninjas, but the impression Naruto had of ninjas was quite different. Although they engaged in activities like spying, intelligence gathering, and assassination, the ninjas in this world were ordinary people. They neither possessed chakra, nor had they mastered spiritual power. They were distinguished by factions, not villages. All this information combined could only lead to one conclusion. Konoha was not the living world equivalent of the Soul Society. This place was a completely different time and space. He couldn't find his parents in the Soul Society. Naruto sat on a tree branch. He looked at a lonely crescent moon in the sky, half obscured by thick clouds. He felt a kinship with it. In front of the portal, the students were gradually returning. Soul burials were not difficult, but sometimes the soul's locations were not fixed, making it a task to find them. This really tested one's ability to master Ryuraku. Has Uzumaki not returned yet? As most people gathered, the upperclassman student looked around, noticing the absence of a distinctive blonde figure in the crowd. Not yet. I saw Uzumaki to the east. He seemed to be still searching for souls. The upperclassman student frowned. Restless souls that were hard to find indeed posed a problem. Many souls turned into hollows because they moved around randomly and the Shinigami couldn't find them in time. But with Uzumaki Naruto's abilities, it shouldn't take this long. Whether it was the dean or the teachers, they all said Naruto now had the skills of a high-ranking lieutenant. He shouldn't have to worry. But the expression Naruto had when he asked questions earlier made him feel concerned. No matter how strong, he was still just a child under 50 years old. The upperclassman student hesitated whether to suggest going to look for Naruto. At that moment, several strong, evil spiritual pressures emerged nearby. He was startled and looked around nervously. Two ferocious and terrifying monsters, faces covered with bone masks, suddenly ran and flew out of the forest, clearly targeting this group of Shinigami. "Be careful, Hollow's attacking," an upperclassman shouted. The students panicked. They had little experience fighting Hollows. Hato number 4. Byakurai, Hail Lightning. But some upperclassmen remained calm, reacted quickly, recited incantations, and cast spells. However, the flash of white lightning struck one of the Hollows, but it couldn't even pierce its skin. The Hollow laughed mockingly, as if to ridicule how weak this attack was. "It's an high-level Hollow?" An upperclassman student couldn't suppress the tremor in his voice. "Quick, call for help." "No use," another shook his head, holding a trembling hell butterfly. "Spiritual communication is interrupted. We can't send for help." Hearing this, many turned to look. Interrupted? How could it be interrupted? During internships, students stayed in constant contact with the Soul Society with no exceptions. Delicious spiritual power. In an instant, a Hollow rushed to the front of the crowd, grabbed a Shinigami, and spoke, its voice greedy. It was craving food. The upperclassman student drew his sword, fearlessly charging to slash its arm. Several other upperclassmen reacted, chanting together. Hato number 12. Fushabai, ambush flare. Thick orange flames surged, binding the Hollow's arm, forcing it to drop the person it was holding. Sizzling burns produced white smoke. But these injuries were not fatal, only causing the Hollow pain. It struggled fiercely and easily broke the flame binds. With another swipe of its claw, the upperclassman student in close combat was sent flying. The Hollow crouched, lunging forward to bite him. "Senpai!" Someone cried out in horror, voice hoarse, filled with grief. At the critical moment, a ball of crimson spiritual power struck, knocking the Hollow over and exploding. The Hollow roared in pain. Thick black liquid dripped from its body. The upperclassmen recognized it as Hato number 31. Shikaho, red fire cannon. One they couldn't cast. Who was the caster? The answer immediately came to mind. Uzumaki, someone shouted. They followed the spiritual pressure. A blond boy stood on a tree. The crescent moon behind him creates a softened backdrop. "Sorry, got distracted. Came back late." He slowly relaxed his hand. eyes sharp. A hollow? My first time fighting such a creature. So, let's... Naruto said, drawing nine tails, swinging the blade forward. Blow off some steam. In a flash step, he vanished. The students only saw a streak of golden light pass before their eyes. Next, the hollow's body split in half. The students realized belatedly with a start, especially those who had previously launched an attack. Clearly, the high-level hollow that even their combined efforts struggled to contend with, whose defenses were almost impenetrable by their spells, had been easily dealt with by Naruto. With just one slash, the blonde boy raised his head and looked at another hollow. Speaking calmly, "Is this a hollow?" It didn't seem as powerful as the teachers described in class. Upon hearing this, the upperclassmen students lowered their heads in shame. "Sorry, we were so weak that we made you overestimate the hollow's strength." The hollow roared, tense and hovering in midair. It sensed the power of the Shinigami before it. Yet, it showed no intention of retreating or escaping. "Can it fly?" Naruto focused on its flapping wings and raised his hand. Shinigami have the ability to hover. Advanced Shinigami can spread their spiritual power in the sky, walking on it to achieve a flight-like effect. Naruto had sufficient spiritual pressure but had not yet learned this skill. Bakudo number 4. Heinawa, crawling rope, a spell cast without incantation. A golden light rope shot from his palm, instantly flying out and binding the hollow's legs. The hollow struggled, its wings flapping vigorously. In terms of strength, Naruto, still a minor, was at a disadvantage. But its thoughts were just that, thoughts. Naruto cast without an incantation. Heido number 11. Tsuzuri Raiden, bound lightning. Lightning erupted from the golden rope, crackling and exploding on the hollow's body, numbing it, draining its strength. It wobbled, losing balance. With a slight pull, Naruto caused the hollow to fall, and with another slash, he cleaved it in two. Black viscous liquid fell to the ground, decomposing into basic spiritual particles. The crisis was resolved. The students let out a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness for you, Uzumaki. We were lucky you were here this time." One upperclassman, who had been captured and almost killed, expressed his gratitude. His words opened the floodgates for the others, who began loudly expressing their relief and admiration after their narrow escape. A once-in-a-century genius can cast Tsuzuri Raiden without incantation. "Well done." Naruto smiled shyly. "Are there any students who haven't returned yet?" Throughout his life, he had never received such straightforward, enthusiastic praise, and he felt a bit embarrassed. An upperclassman stood on tiptoes, counting heads. "Everyone's back. No one is missing." "Then let's return first," Naruto said softly, to avoid further complications. Before he could finish speaking, an upperclassman gripped his sword, staring ahead in terror. The Senkaman won't open. How is that possible?" Another upperclassman instinctively retorted, drawing his own sword. He inserted it into the void beside him. "Open the gate." The sword twisted like a key, but nothing happened. It was confirmed. The gate was sealed. Most of the students turned pale, panicking. They had lost contact with the Soul Society. High in the sky, a brown-haired man wearing glasses chuckled softly. "Such beautiful Kido. But this won't do, Naruto-chan. What I want to see from you is much more than this." With a crisp snap of his fingers, the night sky was torn apart, revealing creases. He gazed intently at the crowd below. "Show me something more interesting." Amid the panicking crowd, Naruto remained the calmest, despite being the smallest. His words carried the most weight. "It must be the work of those two hollow. The Academy and the Godai 13 can't reach us. They're the ones most worried. I think they'll soon." A sharp scream interrupted him. Someone raised a hand, pointing to the sky. Visible spatial ripples. A giant hand with sharp nails tore through the night, revealing the dark, chaotic void. "What is that?" Someone swallowed hard, seeking help dryly. A huge figure always carries immense pressure. not to mention the terrifying spiritual pressure it exuded. A white skeletal face peeked out from the parted sky curtain, with an exposed, concave row of grinding teeth and a long nose sharp as a saw. A terrifying creature. Minos Grande. A student stepped back half a step. That's a Minos Grande, a monster only captains and vice-captains can handle. Naruto looked up. The textbook described this Minos Grande as a product formed by the amalgamation of hundreds of hollows. It sniffed at something, struggling to inch into the present world through the gap. It turned its head, and two hollow, dark eyes aimed at the crowd. Inside the empty eye sockets, only swirling black spiritual power moved. Yet, it was evident that it had a fanatical appetite. It wanted to devour this group of people. How could we encounter such a creature here? Someone despaired, collapsing to the ground. Someone trembled, trying to draw their sword, but under such spiritual pressure and fear, even standing was an exhausting task. Naruto stepped forward. His spiritual pressure burst, soaring skyward. The crowd suddenly felt relieved. They looked up. In front, the blonde youth turned back. "You all move to a safe place. I will deal with it." The upperclassman immediately objected. "No, Uzumaki, even if you are a genius, this is a Minos Grande. It's very powerful." Naruto interrupted softly but firmly. "Is there any other way?" The upperclassman gritted his teeth. His fists clenched tight, turning red. At this moment, he finally understood what the teacher occasionally said to them. Hurry up and get stronger. Power. If he were strong enough now, how could he let someone so much younger stand in front of him? "We will fight together." He drew his sword with trembling hands. Even though Naruto bore most of the spiritual pressure in front, the slight leakage was still too heavy for them. The ungraduated Shinigami, "We can't leave you behind." As he spoke, he paused, staring at Naruto in surprise. At such a critical moment, he actually smiled. "From now on, call me Naruto," Naruto said frankly, smiling brightly. "Do you think I will become a high-ranking lieutenant after graduation?" This question was somewhat inappropriate, but the upperclassmen didn't hesitate. Of course, Naruto turned back, looking at the Minos Grande almost fully emerging. "Then let me exercise the authority of a lieutenant in advance. I order you to retreat and protect the students of Shino Academy." The upperclassman gritted his teeth. Naruto raised his sword, the red tassel swaying, his voice firm and powerful. "Don't worry, I am very strong. Next time we meet, stay alive." The upperclassman controlled his intense emotions. Naruto responded without hesitation. Of course, the dark red sword was called by name. Spiritual power bloomed. He entered the one-tail transformation state. He donned a layer of lava-like, semi-transparent red spiritual power cloak. For no reason, everyone felt a heavy heart, emotions affected. Some, who could instinctively hold back, couldn't help but cry out loud. "Is that Uzumaki's sword?" Someone stared back intently while escaping. Such a powerful and beautiful sword. Naruto's ear twitched. Beautiful? It's the first time someone praised it this way. The Minos Grande fully broke free. It lowered its head. Its frenzied spiritual power gathered in front of its mouth, flickering deep red. Naruto stared. That was... The technique Urahara Kisuk said was very similar to the tailed beast bomb. He could use in four-tail transformation. Zero. He bent his legs and sprang forward to kill. Spiritual pressure drove the blade, slashing the Minos Grande's arm, not cutting it off. But it left a deep wound. Blood spurted, spiritual power dissipated. The Minos Grande felt pain. The Zero in front of its mouth didn't fully condense, dispersing with a wailing cry. It wasn't that hard to deal with. As the book said, vast spiritual pressure, but low intelligence, slow movements. In battle, these two are original sins. Ordinary Shinigami couldn't deal with it because they couldn't break its defense. But as long as you could break the defense, it posed no threat. Not far away, a man with flat glasses stood in the air, observing closely, but neither the Minos Grande nor Naruto noticed him. Inside Naruto, the nine tails bristled. It sensed an extremely powerful force coveting, making it anxious, reminding it of those three men. The Minos Grande is really a useless thing. This won't do. I saw you with 4 tails that day. Then, let's do this. He waved his hand. In the sky, several pitch-black holes twisted open. Dozens of Minos flew out from the black void. Not towards Naruto, but towards the fleeing Shinigami students. The man murmured to himself, his tone joyful. Newly acquainted friends under attack. Uzumaki Naruto, what will you do? The horde covered the sky and earth. Each one was no smaller than the 2 that had just appeared. They were ferocious and malevolent, attacking the students with greedy appetite. The crowd panicked. Several upperclassmen students turned around, drew their swords, their faces still bearing traces of fear, but their steps were firm and unyielding. Naruto crouched on the Minos Grande's shoulder, unperturbed. For other Shinigami, a Zanpakuto that is not suited for group attacks might lack effective means against many enemies. But Naruto was different. Currently, apart from the tailed beast bomb in his 4 tails form, the 9 tails indeed had no group attack capability. However, he was not short of effective methods. If one isn't enough, then call out more people. He threw his sword high into the air. Naruto raised his hands, joining his index and ring fingers together, forming a cross sign with his right hand vertical and his left hand horizontal. Multiple shadow clone technique, with a puff of white smoke. Dozens of Narutos appeared on the Minos Grande's shoulder. They leaped down, chasing the Minos Grande horde, each holding a dark red sword. In the sky, the man's expression changed. The anticipated surprise blossomed at this moment. The ability of a Zanpakuto? Or is it a new technique? He watched Naruto, who remained on the Minos Grande's shoulder, and grabbed his sword, raising his hands to form the same cross sign. Of course, he did not channel spiritual power, but merely memorized the gesture. Each one is corporeal. Each possesses the same spiritual power, but the overall spiritual pressure intensity hasn't changed. It's distributed among each clone. Interesting ability. With the spiritual pressure reduced, the clones could handle the Minos Grande horde without issue. However, Naruto struggled against the Minos Grande. He released the 3rd tail, causing effective damage. The Minos Grande howled in pain. Several times, it attempted to tear the sky and summon the Garganta to escape. Whether Naruto or the Shinigami trainees, their spiritual power indeed seemed delicious, but the instinctive sense of danger was enough for it to abandon the food. But the man orchestrating this drama did not allow it to exit the stage. He eagerly recorded everything. Such immense spiritual pressure. Even when divided into so many parts, it can still harm the Minos Grande. But it's still not enough. These aren't enough to please me. He stretched out his hand, personally tearing the sky, as if the theater master, opening the stage for a grand and luxurious performance. A second Minos Grande was released. Along with it, another group of Minos Grandes swarmed out like bees, buzzing and charging at the crowd. The unique, rotting spiritual pressure of the Minos Grandes consumed the space. The crescent moon vanished, shrouded by dark clouds. Naruto gritted his teeth. Another Minos Grande was not a big deal, but he glanced sideways at the crowd. Those people were no longer panicking, perhaps because Naruto's clones were nearby, or perhaps they had become accustomed to the pressure. Many stood up, drawing their swords, casting Kido, assisting the clones in battle. Though their efforts were minimal, they were not lacking in courage. Yet, the appearance of more Minos Grandes still brought despair to their faces. Naruto took a deep breath and raised his sword. More clones were needed. Greater spiritual pressure was needed. He did not favor the 4 tails form. Even though with Urahara Kisuke's developed support seal, he could maintain his own will. But the feeling of being wrapped in negative emotions was still unpleasant. The 4th red velvet ribbon split out, enormous and overwhelming spiritual pressure rolling out. Dark red spiritual power armor grew from his feet. He opened his mouth and swallowed the sword. The 4th tail emerged. The other clones followed suit, transforming as well, and more shadow clones were summoned. pouncing on the Minos Grande horde. Naruto stood, looking somewhat strange, like an upright fox. He drew another sword and leaped high. Two-tailed beast hands shot out from his body, grabbing the heads of the two Minos Grandes. With a powerful pull, they toppled like towers, crashing into each other. In the air, Naruto manipulated the four tails, curving them towards his mouth. A cluster of spiritual particles quickly coalesced into a pitch-black sphere and was expelled. It wasn't very large. Naruto, prioritizing speed, sacrificed some power, making it only the size of two fists. It didn't spin and was simply hurled straight. It collided with the heads of two large hollows. The small sphere exploded with a roar, the blast wave rolling out, a gust of wind scattering the dust. Both of the large hollows' heads were obliterated in the explosion. Quick and decisive, Naruto landed on all fours, then quickly stood up, containing his spiritual power as he recited an incantation. This was one of Urahara Kisuke's achievements. It allowed him to suppress his spiritual power. The fourth tail retracted, its dark red color fading back to a semi-transparent state, while the three tails behind him swayed. In the sky, a man reached out his hand, feeling the hot wind touch his palm. His flat glasses seemed to capture the flash of the explosion. Was this the ability that wasn't used that day? Even with such a divided amount of spiritual pressure, it still had this kind of destructive power. Not a Shinigami, nor a hollow. He remembered the incantation. This would be an effective breakthrough. Let's leave it at this for now. They're about to break through. He waved his hand. The sky gradually concealed his figure. Unexpected events are gems given by the world. They will shine brightly under the sun. This time, I am pleased. Naruto, will you be pleased? Naruto had no time to ponder these words. He dealt with the hollows while keeping an eye on the sky, worried that a third large hollow might appear. But the incident subsided. The hollows finally knew to flee, opening a garganta and disappearing. Those who didn't escape in time were swiftly dispatched by Naruto. An upperclassman pointed behind him. Great, the Senkamen is open. The floating ukiyo-e gate spread wide. As soon as a crack appeared, two figures in white Haori rushed out, followed by several black-clad figures. The hollow's spiritual pressure pervaded the land, making the newly arrived Shinigami tense. But they soon realized there were only a few hollows left, being chased and cut down by a blonde boy enveloped in red spiritual power. Naruto. Shihoin Yuruchi sighed in relief, calling out. Her expression was serious as she stared at the dissipating massive corpse not far away. Another captain turned his head, his blonde hair swinging. Shinji Hirako. His naturally stern face looked even more intimidating when stern. He said nothing, glancing at the large hollow before quickly looking away, then fixating on the man with flat glasses who followed him. This man had been by his side the entire time, but for some reason, Shinji Hirako felt this matter was somehow connected to this man. Yuruchi, you're here. Naruto waved after slashing the last hollow, dismissing his clone. A large hollow? Yuruchi pointed at the corpse. Naruto nodded. Yes, two large hollows. Large hollows. Yuruchi's brows furrowed tighter. Any casualties? Unlike ordinary hollows, large hollows typically don't come to the human world. They only operate in Hueco Mundo, their own realm. Naruto didn't respond. He didn't know much about this. An upperclassman beside him grinned, his voice tired but excited. Luckily, we had Naruto. He not only fought the large hollows but also helped us fend off the high-level hollows, at least several hundred. Without Naruto, we might all be dead. Some students were injured, but Naruto could heal them in time, saving their lives. The members of the second division showed no emotion. They were part of the stealth force. The 5th Division Shinigami who came with Shinji Hirako were astonished, looking at Naruto in disbelief. Killing large hollows, protecting students amidst hundreds of hollows. Could this still be done by a kid who hasn't graduated yet? In their hearts, even as high-ranking lieutenants, they weren't confident in such a task. No one died. These words visibly relaxed the two captains. This was the best outcome. What's with the Senkamen? Naruto asked. Yoruchi shook her head. Still not clear. Urahara is working on it. Let's head back. The 4th Division is all set. 4th Division prepared thoroughly, deploying 8 rescue teams with over 70 members in total. However, they were not needed. The students' injuries were not severe, and 1 rescue team was sufficient. Although Naruto was not injured, he was also forced to stay for observation. The nature of this incident was very serious, warranting a joint investigation by 2nd, 8th, and 9th Division. The Senkaman Gate had been operational for many years without any errors. But this time, it was forcibly sealed by an unknown force for an hour. If Naruto hadn't been there, it could have resulted in the most catastrophic death toll since the founding of the Shino Academy. You're not injured, and your Ryatsu is very stable, Unohana concluded after a thorough examination. Naruto grinned brightly. I told you, I'm fine. Unohana smiled softly, speaking gently. Captain Commander Yamamoto wishes to see you. Do you plan to go today? Or would you like to rest for a few days first? Naruto was taken aback. Captain Commander Yamamoto? He had heard of this Captain Commander, reputed to be at least 1,000 years old, the oldest and most powerful Shinigami in the Soul Society, but had never met him. Me? Why does he want to see me? Naruto asked, puzzled. Unohana shook her head. You'll know when you see him. Captain Commander Yamamoto is now an easy person to get along with. Although it's a bit early, this is also a suitable time. Naruto glanced at the 2 swords on the bedside cabinet. Then I'll go now. Unohana walked over and opened the door. Awaiting outside was Lieutenant Chojiro Sasakaibe, whom Naruto had met once before. Lieutenant Sasakaibe, Naruto is ready now. 1st Division Headquarters. Captain Commander Yamamoto's residence was a serene courtyard. A dry landscape garden stretched out, with concentric ripples fixed like charred ashes. Lieutenant Sasakaibe stopped in front of a tatami room, his voice respectful. Captain Commander Yamamoto, Uzumaki Naruto is here to visit. Come in. A soft voice from inside responded. Lieutenant Sasakaibe slid open the door and gestured for Naruto to enter. Naruto walked inside. There was only one elderly man sitting in Seiza, with a bald head and a cross-shaped scar on his left forehead. His eyebrows hung down to his chin, and his beard, even longer, was intricately braided. He looked very old but not frail. As soon as Naruto stepped in, he sensed the man's immense Ryatsu, feeling as if he were a small boat struggling in a stormy sea. The Nine Tails felt the same way, bristling once again. This place called the Soul Society had so many terrifyingly powerful individuals. Just now one and now another. Sit, he gestured. Naruto sat down opposite him. Captain Commander Yamamoto spoke softly. Uzumaki Naruto, I have been paying close attention to you. I did not just order the 2nd Division Stealth Force to observe you. There are also people in the 1st Division and 8th Division watching you 24 hours a day. I personally review every report from Captain Urahara. Naruto frowned slightly. This was more than attention. Could be considered surveillance. You are a very unusual person, Captain Commander Yamamoto continued. You are not from Hokage, and there are no records of a soul burial for you by the 13th Division. You suddenly appeared, making a remarkable impression. You possess powers that are neither Shinigami, Hollow, nor Quincy. Naruto opened his mouth, wanting to say something. Captain Commander Yamamoto raised his hand to stop him. That's why I have been watching you. Your conduct has pleased me greatly. Especially today, you were willing and able to protect every student. He paused, opening his eyes wider, his 1,000-year-old sharp gaze piercing like arrows. Secrets are a natural product of survival. I am old and no longer as curious as I once was. Uzumaki Naruto. Yes, sir, Naruto responded. I ask you, will your secrets threaten the Soul Society? Captain Commander Yamamoto's voice suddenly grew heavy. His sharp, weighty question thrown out in an instant. Naruto shook his head decisively without hesitation. No, Captain General Yamamoto nodded. Very well, that's all I needed to hear. Naruto opened his mouth, his expression curious. Not curious, just like that, trusting him? It was a feeling he had never experienced before. A bit sweet, yet somewhat heavy. The reason a secret is because it is rooted in the heart, Yamamoto said softly. I am not an old-fashioned, stubborn man who digs too deep. Your actions have earned you this trust. Not wanting to dwell too much on this topic, he continued, what are your thoughts on the selection of the next division? This made Naruto a bit confused. Originally, he had wanted to join the 13th Division, the Purification Squad, responsible for performing the soul burial of spirits in the real world. But the real world was not the same as the world where Konoha was located. Perhaps you should listen to my suggestion, Yamamoto offered. Naruto immediately nodded. Yamamoto spoke gently, I have high hopes for you. You have talent and a good character. There are 3 squads that suit you. The 4th Division, the 8th Division, and the 13th Division. One of these squads was unexpected to Naruto. The 4th Division, the medical team, is it because of his healing abilities? Retsu is very fond of you, Yamamoto continued. You also have the potential for Kaido, Turnway/healing spiritual arts, but Retsu may not be the best teacher for you. You are a gentle child. Naruto realized who Retsu referred to and quickly said, Captain Unohana is very gentle. I also like her very much. Yamamoto shook his head and smiled. I would prefer you to join either the 8th Division or the 13th Division. You wield 2 swords. Shunsui and Jushiro also have twin swords. They, like you, are inherently gentle, and compared to you, they are mature and able to steadfastly pursue their paths. They can guide you in your current state of confusion. Naruto clenched his fist. Yamamoto paused. For personal reasons, I would prefer you to join the 13th Division. Naruto was stunned. The 13th Division? It aligned with his original intention. But why the preference for this squad? He had interacted more with 8th Division Captain Kairaku Shunsui and had never met 13th Division Captain Yukitake Jushiro. Shunsui does have his moments when serious. Yamamoto unabashedly criticized his student, but he is usually frivolous and lazy. Tolerating someone like him in the Godai 13 is already the limit. If there were another Shunsui, I fear I would live a few hundred years less. You are a good kid. It's best not to be led astray by him, Naruto thought for a moment. Then the 13th Division it is. Yamamoto nodded. I will give you 20 years. I initially intended to entrust the position of 10th Division Captain to Isshin Shiba. But with you here, I hope you can quickly grow into a capable captain. Naruto took a deep breath and agreed. Yes, I will strive to become stronger. Not power, Yamamoto interrupted. Its ability. To be a captain, one needs more than just power. A strong heart is also required. A strong heart. Naruto repeated these words and solemnly agreed. Yamamoto, believe in you times believe in myself. There's also a comment in Chidien that said, it's not that I trust you, but I just trust myself more. It's the contempt of the strong. You're strong, but I'm stronger. Naruto returned to the 4th Division. He explained his decision to Unohana Retsu. She was not surprised and even supportive, acknowledging that what Captain Commander Yamamoto had said was correct. She wasn't quite suited to be Naruto's teacher. However, despite not having a teacher-student relationship, Unohana Retsu still welcomed Naruto to the 4th Division to learn Kaido from her. This left Naruto a bit puzzled. What difference does this make from having a teacher? Sosuke Aizen was the first to visit him, but after a few words, he was chased away by Shinji Hirako. The second visitor was unexpectedly Shihoin Yoruchi, but the gift she brought, she was holding a young man with a high ponytail, bound with Bakudo No. 4. Hainawa, crawling rope, who was struggling violently. Let go of me, you demon cat. I can walk by myself. You, how dare you bring disgrace to the Kuchiki clan? Yoruchi grinned mischievously. Don't get excited. This is the 4th Division. Be quiet. Patients need peace. The black-haired young man clenched his fists, gritting his teeth. Before he could think of a way to deal with this, he was suddenly thrown into the air. The rope was retracted. The young man barely landed on his feet. Naruto, I brought an interesting fellow to see you, Yaruchi cheerfully greeted. He's not as good as you, but he's also a genius. Upon hearing the sound Naruto, the black-haired young man swallowed back the words he was about to hurl at Yaruchi. He turned to look at the blonde boy lying on the bed, matching him with the image of Uzumaki Naruto in his mind. Immediately, he restrained his turbulent aura, placed his hands in front of him, and bowed politely and impeccably. Greetings, I apologize for my earlier rudeness, and for making a spectacle of myself. I am Byakuya Kuchiki from the Kuchiki family. I apologize for the interruption and look forward to your guidance. Naruto, nervously clutching the bedsheet, leaned forward and nodded. Hello, I am Uzumaki Naruto. Nice to meet you. I look forward to your guidance. It was the first time he had encountered such a formal and elaborate greeting. Yaruchi, with a carefree attitude, kicked Naruto's legs aside and sat on the bed. No need to be so formal. Byakuya, you brought me here to meet Uzumaki-san. Byakuya Kuchiki restrained himself from calling her a demon cat. Yaruchi nodded. Righteously, yes, you always call me demon cat. Byakuya Kuchiki, unable to hide his temper in front of her, immediately retorted, because you don't act like the head of the Shihoin clan at all. That's because you're too rigid. Yaruchi put her hands on her hips. So I brought you to meet Naruto. He's even more of a genius than you. And just like me, he's also an animal. Byakuya Kuchiki was stunned. I'm a cat and he's a fox. Yaruchi raised her hand, making a fox gesture with her fingers. Middle and ring fingers pinching the thumb, index and pinky fingers standing up like ears. So you can't beat us. Byakuya Kuchiki gritted his teeth. Demon cat. What kind of logic is that? He admitted that Naruto was a great genius, but he's not inferior either. Yaruchi, catching his emotion, smirked and lowered her voice. Tu menos grandes. Byakuya Kuchiki paused, looking at her in confusion. What was she talking about? Then he realized something. His gaze fell on Naruto. Not long ago, Naruto killed Tu menos grandes by himself. Yaruchi jumped up, vigorously ruffling Byakuya's hair, and he wasn't even injured. Foxes are very strong, but black cats can overpower foxes. Byakuya Kuchiki's pupils dilated, his expression one of disbelief. Tu menos grandes, so powerful? He had heard that Uzumaki Naruto was only at 5th rank spiritual pressure, comparable to his own level. Byakuya will join the Godiai 13 in a few years. You two should get to know each other well. Yaruchi stretched, heading towards the door. Naruto asked, Captain Yaruchi, are you leaving now? Yaruchi turned back, chuckling. I still have to investigate the Senkamen. I sneaked out to come here. If I don't return soon, Omida will start complaining. With that, she disappeared in a flash step. Without Yaruchi present, Byakuya Kuchiki gradually calmed down. He had a somewhat cold personality. Perhaps it was the status brought by being one of the 5 noble clans, or maybe because Byakuya Kuchiki didn't have the experience of studying at the Shino Academy. He wasn't very good at conversing with outsiders. Being a high-ranking noble, he didn't need the graduation certificate from the Shino Academy, nor the entrance exams to directly join the Godiai 13. However, the person was very nice. After the initial awkward greetings, he started to have a friendly conversation with Naruto about Shuinpa and Kido. During the month Naruto was in the hospital, he was the one who visited Naruto the most. Time smoothed over the unrest. The impact caused by the Senkamen gradually dissipated. The 3rd Division did not obtain any investigation results, and the Central 46 Chambers issued an order to no longer waste manpower on this matter. The graduation ceremony of the Shino Academy of Spiritual Arts took place at this time. On the day when cherry blossoms were fluttering, the joy of graduation and the beginning of a new school year overshadowed past events. The barracks of the 13th Division. Naruto, now dressed in the black Shinigami uniform, met for the first time the man frequently mentioned by Kairaku Shunsui, Yukitake Jushiro. He was a man with long white hair reaching his waist. He did not appear sickly at all. His features were gentle and his eyes were bright and lively. "Naruto, let me address you this way," Yukitake Jushiro began. "I never expected you to choose our division. I thought you would go to Shunsui." Naruto replied honestly, "The captain commander recommended that I follow you. He thinks Uncle Shunsui might be a bit lax at times." Jushiro was taken aback and then laughed heartily. "Shunsui indeed is a bit lazy." As he spoke, he pointed to the black-haired man beside him. "Let me introduce. This is our 13th Division's vice captain, Shiba Kyan. He's an excellent and very capable man." Shiba Kyan nodded in greeting. He had a gentle demeanor similar to Yukitake Jushiro, but perhaps because of his good health, he seemed more energetic. "The captain is unwell," he said, "so I will be teaching you how to handle division affairs." Yukitake Jushiro smiled. "If you have any questions about using dual swords, feel free to ask me anytime. My health is not so poor that I can't do anything. Although you will be a captain in another division in the future, even if it's brief, Naruto, you are now a member of our 13th division. So, I want to introduce you to..." Shiba Kyan cooperatively turned around and showed Naruto the armband on his left arm, which signified his position as vice captain, and the characters and patterns engraved on it. The kanji character, 13, like stems and leaves, holding a small lantern-like flower. Yukitake Jushiro explained. "Every division has a flower as their emblem. Our 13th division flower is the Daisetsu." He paused and asked, "Naruto, do you know anything about flower arranging?" Naruto shook his head. Jushiro smiled. "You can learn a bit. Captain Unohana loves flower arranging, and the flower language of the Daisetsu is hope. Hope." Naruto stared blankly at Shiba Kyan's armband. He suddenly thought that maybe the captain commander was not worried about him being led astray by Uncle Shunsui, but rather believed that Captain Yukitake would be better at teaching him how to grasp his own Daisetsu. Not long after the introduction, Yukitake Jushiro couldn't help but start coughing, far weaker than he appeared. He excused himself and left. The remaining tasks were handed over to Kyan. Shiba Kyan was a very enthusiastic and gentle person. He patiently and earnestly taught Naruto how to become a qualified captain. 5 years passed. Naruto grew from a stumbling apprentice Shinigami to a somewhat competent third seat. During this period, everything was peaceful. The Reuniting seemed to have forgotten about the Senkaman incident. Only occasionally in conversations with Urahara Kisuke did he hear complaints about the investigation not going smoothly. The Nine Tails was also very quiet, not causing any trouble. While learning to handle division affairs, Naruto did not neglect improving his own strength. However, he still had not heard the voice of the other sword. One day, after finishing Zanpakuto training, when Naruto opened his eyes again, he was no longer in the 13th Division's barracks, but in the clean little house in Konoha that he had tidied up. He had returned to Konoha once again. He was not as confused as the first time he came back. Sitting on the bed, deep in thought. The first time it was 3 years, this time it was 6 years. He had stayed in the Soul Society for nearly twice as long.
And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.